Chapter 232. Similarly, Ji Dong soared into the air, but he did not have as much trouble as Ajin. He easily used the dragon snake transformation and flew towards a corner of the spacious hall. Even without using his eyes, he could find his target. It was the long weapon that was emitting an urgent emotion and desire towards him. In a flash, Ji Dong had already arrived in front of his target. He raised his hands at the same time, and with a circle and a pull, a black and a gold light shot out from his palms. They circled in the air and wrapped around the long handle of the weapon. Intense ultimate dual fire was instantly injected into the weapon, causing it to light up immediately. However, it was not the light of gold and black that lit up, but the red and blue that represented Yang fire and Yin fire. Half of it was red, and the other half was blue. This magical weapon that was much larger than the eunuch maker fell into Ji Dong's hands under the guidance of mana. With a flash, Ji Dong landed on the ground again. His gaze was firmly attracted by the weapon in his hands. This was a sword. That's right, it was a sword. An extremely large sword. Just the hilt alone was 2 meters long. There was no blade, and the hilt was directly connected to the blade. The blade was 7 meters long, 3 meters wide, and a terrifying thickness of 1 meter. The most peculiar thing was the spine of the sword. One side of the spine was red, and the other side was blue. Both shone with dazzling fire elemental waves. However, compared to Ajin's eunuch maker's golden scissors, the light was much dimmer. It was very obvious that Ajin's golden scissors was an ultimate magical weapon. Although the quality of Ji Dong's super heavy sword was not bad, it was only an ordinary magical weapon. Of course, to be able to forge such a large weapon that weighed more than 1,500 kilograms, the material itself was rather outstanding. It was such a heavy sword. Even with Ji Dong's strength, he had to go all out to activate his mana to successfully use this super heavy sword. In terms of quality, not only could the aura of the magic contained in this heavy sword not compare to the eunuch maker's, it was also far inferior to his demon Lord Yin Yang armor. Although the demon Lord Yin Yang armor was not a true substandard artifact, it was still an ultimate magical weapon. Seeing Ji Dong's choice, Hilo heaved a sigh of relief and even felt a little grateful. He had clearly seen that Ji Dong's attention had been focused on the 2 fire-type substandard artifacts, but in the end, he had chosen the worst long weapon in the entire treasure vault. It was very likely that Ji Dong had been thinking of him and was too embarrassed to choose a substandard artifact. Without needing Ji Dong to ask, Hilo had already directly told him about the origin of this weapon. This sword is very peculiar. Although its quality does not seem to be the best, its origin is also very legendary. It is said that our first president brought it back, and it can be said to be one of the oldest magical weapons in the entire treasure vault. The first president only left a simple note for it, produced from the Holy Evil Island, 2 combined into 1, left for the fated. I hope it follows you and can display its proper brilliance on the continent. After all, this heavy sword is the longest sword I have ever seen, and its lethality is also quite astonishing. It is enough to sweep away a large area. The sweep away a large area that Hilo referred to was, of course, based on the premise that the opponent's strength was inferior. Ji Dong could naturally hear it, but he did not take it to heart. At this moment, he was thinking about what Hilo had said before. Produced from the Holy Evil Island, 2 combined into 1. These 9 simple words caused a flash of inspiration in his mind. 2 combined into 1, 2 combined into 1. Could it be that these 4 words truly referred to the merging of the Yin and Yang fires into 1? The magical weapons produced by the Holy Evil Island were produced thousands of years ago, when powerful wizards were everywhere. No, this heavy sword was probably not that simple. Mana continued to be injected into the heavy sword, and the blue and red flames on the heavy sword became more and more intense. The red and blue heavy sword was quite dazzling in color, but because of its huge size, the amount of mana needed to be injected was also considerable. Try holding the blue one in your left hand and the red one in your right hand. At the same time, inject the corresponding mana with all your strength. The flaming bar's voice sounded in a timely manner. This time, it was not transmitted through the soul, but spoken directly. There was a strange fluctuation in her voice. According to the Flaming Bar's instructions, Ji Dong completely separated the ultimate dual flames he injected into the heavy sword. He held one side of the hilt with both hands and injected all his mana into it. When his mana started to be injected, the previous urgent and cordial feeling appeared in the huge heavy sword again. This time it was full of joy. The 9-meter-long heavy sword actually began to tremble violently because of the emotional excitement. Such a human-like behavior further strengthened Ji Dong's belief that this heavy sword was extraordinary. It was also at this moment that a repulsive aura suddenly emanated from Ji Dong's hands. That was definitely not his own ultimate dual flames repelling each other. Under the effect of the soul flame, his dual flames had long since merged perfectly. Just as Ji Dong was puzzling over what was happening, a strange scene appeared. A distant buzzing sound like the ringing of an ancient bell suddenly came from the heavy sword in his hands. Then, the red and blue colors actually separated just like that. Ji Dong raised his hands to both sides. The original 9-meter-long sword actually split into two actual swords. The one in his left hand was completely blue and emitted a dense blue flame. The one in his right hand was completely red and emitted an explosive yang fire. The two 9-meter-long swords, one blue and one red, were a spectacular sight. The moment they separated, the originally weak aura suddenly soared, and the light on the swords became more and more intense. With a boom, all the fire attribute magical weapons in the treasury buzzed at the same time. They automatically lowered themselves and circled above Ji Dong's head, as if they were worshipping the two swords in his hands. It was also at this moment that the light on the two swords in Ji Dong's hands began to change. Starting from the sword hilt, the two-colored magical power of gold and black began to spread. In the blink of an eye, the yin and yang fire had already turned into the ultimate dual flames. The intense pressure of the ultimate dual flames immediately caused the air to burn, and the entire 5-element space seemed to be trembling slightly. The two 9-meter-long heavy swords also became completely transparent. The long sword in the left hand turned black, and the long sword in the right hand turned completely golden. The blades, which originally did not have a strong light, automatically emitted a sharp light that was more than a foot long around the entire longsword. It was not produced by magical power, but the light emitted by the heavy swords themselves. Hilo no longer knew what to say. At this moment, the light emitted by the two long swords in Ji Dong's hands was not inferior to the golden scissors that Ajin had obtained. Moreover, the two long swords had an additional layer of mysterious aura. Two as one? Why didn't I think of two swords as one, and not two elements as one? Oh my God! The secret that had not been solved for 1,000 years was actually solved today. Did this Ji Dong really come into being at the right time? Hilo was already a little numb. His heart was not dripping blood, but it was about to spurt blood. Even an idiot could see that the value of the pair of super heavy swords in Ji Dong's hands was far above that of the eunuch maker. Only God knew what other secrets were hidden within. When the two swords were separated, the weight in his hands did not decrease, but increased greatly. It seemed that the magic power that Ji Dong had poured into the heavy swords also had weight, causing his arms to sink, and he almost lost his grip. It had to be known that the 9-meter-long heavy swords were definitely two-handed weapons, not to mention anything else. At this moment, Ji Dong had one in each hand, and it was a little difficult for him to hold the thick hilt firmly. When the two heavy swords were combined, it felt like they were only about 3,000 pounds, but once they were separated, the weight of each heavy sword increased exponentially. Ji Dong was surprised to find that they seemed to be about 5,000 pounds each. Even with Ji Dong's 6-crowned ultimate dual fire strength, it was still extremely difficult to lift two heavy swords that weighed 5,000 pounds at the same time. He did not dare to hold back any of his magic power, and poured it into the heavy swords with all his might to barely maintain them. It was almost impossible to fight with them. However, he soon felt relieved. This level of heavy weapons was naturally used when riding a mount. After the sacred evolution fire dragon was connected to him, his magic power would greatly increase, and it would be much easier to control these two heavy swords again. What's that? Ajin's surprised voice sounded. Ji-dong had been urging his magic power to hold the heavy swords, so he did not notice the changes after the two swords were separated. At this moment, with Ajin's voice, he only noticed that there were 9 dents on the inside of the two heavy swords, which was the side where they were combined before. Each dent was about a foot in diameter, and the dents were very deep. After the infusion of magic power, they became transparent like a magician's elemental body, and the 9 dents were not obvious. One needed to look carefully to see them. These can't be inlays, can they? Hilo said in a daze. Ji-dong was also stunned. Inlays? Inlays a meter in diameter, and there were 9 on each side. There were 18 inlays for the two swords. What was inlaid? Could it be the Yang fire and Yin fire divine stone of the 5 elements divine stone? Such a large piece of divine stone, and so many of them, it was almost impossible to find, because these two swords have lost the gemstones embedded in them. They are Yin and Yang in harmony with each other. They rely on each other and maintain their spirituality, which is why they are combined into one. They suppress each other's attributes so that the spirituality of the swords will not be lost. Only by completing the inlays can they truly show their original appearance. However, even without inlays, as long as there is a magician's magic power to inject, they're still quite good weapons. Ji-dong looked at the flaming bar, and the flaming bar nodded at him gently. He then turned to Hilo, whose face could be described as ashen. These were 3 treasures at the level of substandard artifacts, and they were gone just like that. 2 of them could still be inlaid. No matter how difficult it was still a possibility. After the substandard artifact was inlaid, what would it be? Vice President Hilo, I think that's it for today. We are not greedy people, so we don't want the other equipment you mentioned. These 2 swords are mine now, right? When Hilo heard what Ji-dong said, his face finally looked a little better. He nodded reluctantly and said, "Of course. Congratulations, Mr. Ji-dong. These 2 weapons will definitely be very suitable for you." With 2 clangs, the heavy swords fell to the ground. Ji-dong's arms were already sore and numb. He smiled bitterly and said, "I'm afraid it will take a long time to fully control them. They are too heavy." With Ji-dong's strength after the Phoenix Dance Dragon Snake transformation, 5,000 kilograms was nothing to him. If he used his full physical strength, he would be able to erupt with the same level of strength. But the key was that these were 2 weapons. If he wanted to use the weapons that weighed 5,000 kilograms, he would need at least 100,000 kilograms of strength. Even if he used all his mana, it would still be impossible. This was also because his body was extremely flexible, so he didn't injure his tendons while forcefully carrying the 2 heavy swords. However, if he wanted to fully control them, he would at least have to wait until he reached the 8th crown. As for the inlays, Ji-dong didn't think about it at all. The reason was very simple. When the flaming bar nodded at him just now, he transmitted 2 words to Ji-dong through his soul and completely dispelled the idea of inlaying them. Those 3 words were Heaven Jade. That's right. The flaming bar was telling Ji-dong that if he wanted to use the power of these 2 heavy swords, he would need to have a full inlay of Heaven Jade. A palm-sized piece of Heaven Jade was already a heavenly treasure that would make soul masters go crazy. 365 Chaos Green bricks might not even have 1 piece of Heaven Jade, but Ji-dong's 2 heavy swords needed to be inlaid with a total of 18 spherical Heaven Jade that were a foot in diameter. With so many Heaven Jades added together, the chaotic energy contained within would probably be enough to create 10 5-elemental spaces like the one in front of him. Mana surging, Ji-dong put these 2 heavy swords into his vermilion burr bracelet. He swung his swollen arms and finally relaxed a little. It wasn't that he didn't think about fusing them into his body through the fusion divine art and using the soul fire to temper them. But looking at the giant sword that was 9 meters long and 3 meters wide, he didn't have any more ideas. With his current level of mana and fusion divine art cultivation, he probably wouldn't even be able to fuse the sword hilt. When leaving the treasure vault, Ji-dong already had an additional responsibility in his heart. As the saying goes, one's hands are tied after taking the other party's precious mana weapons. He definitely had to go all out in the battle tomorrow. Although the Magic Guild was passive, Ji-dong still had a better impression of them. After walking out of the treasure vault, Hilo's expression had already returned to normal. Since he had already given the things to the other party, he might as well be more carefree. He said that if the Magic Guild obtained the final victory in the battle tomorrow, everything in the treasure vault could be sold to Ji-dong at half price. Of course, even at half price, many things were still astronomical, so this promise was more or less useless. Chapter 233. Under Hilo's arrangement, Ji-dong and the other two stayed in the VIP suite specially prepared by the Magician Union to entertain distinguished guests. Compared to the one they stayed in at the hotel last time, this suite was much bigger and luxuriously decorated. It even catered to the needs of the guest cultivation, so much so that 10 different types of 5 elements divine stones were used to make meditation areas suitable for any kind of magician to cultivate. However, to Ji-dong's great disappointment, this suite actually had 2 bedrooms, both with very big beds, velvet quilts, pillows, and extremely comfortable. Why'd they get 2 beds? They really have nothing better to do. Ji-dong secretly criticized in his heart. Ji-dong, what are you thinking about? The flaming bar took off his bamboo hat and revealed his perfect face. No matter how outstanding Ajin was, when the flaming bar revealed his true colors, he would be overshadowed. Nothing. Ji-dong looked at the flaming bar with a slight panic like a child who was caught stealing candy. The flaming bar snorted and lowered his voice. You're thinking of bad things, aren't you? Nope, I'm thinking of good things. Ji-dong chuckled. As the relationship between the two grew closer, he was no longer as reserved towards the flaming bar as before. His respect gradually decreased, and his intimacy increased. The flaming bar rolled his eyes at him and said, You can't even think of good things. It seems like only your own choice is the most correct. Even I couldn't see the secret of those 2 giant swords today. If you didn't pick them out, I would only think that they were the most common magic weapons. The magic of these 2 weapons is extremely compatible. Although they have different attributes, their bodies seem to be made of the same metal. They can hide their own aura to the point that even I can't detect them. No wonder the Magician Union couldn't see through their secret for so many years. Ji-dong smiled bitterly. Unfortunately, I'm afraid they can never recover their original appearance. Wouldn't we need 1 or 2 tons of heaven jade to fully embed them? Where can I find such a huge heaven jade? If there really is such a thing, I'm afraid it would be shattered by the heavenly lightning before I can even touch it. This thing is heaven-defying. Raging Flame smiled and said, Although the jade of heaven was produced at the beginning of the primal chaos and absorb a large amount of primal chaos chi, you don't have to think too highly of them. If you absorb so much jade of heaven by yourself, it will only be able to raise you to the 99th level of saint rank. He's only a saint? I've never heard of the existence of a saint level in the whole continent. Ji-dong looked at the flaming bar and was speechless. The flaming bar shook his head gently and said, That's hard to say. You humans have greater potential than any other race. Not to mention saint level, it's possible for you to become a god. It's just that it's relatively more difficult. Moreover, don't forget that although you can't have that many heaven jade, you have an advantage that ordinary people can't reach, and that is the soul fire. Tell me first, why did you choose these 2 heavy swords? Ji-dong said, At that time, I seemed to feel that they were confiding in me. They were full of desire, eager and affectionate, hoping to become my weapon. Didn't you tell me to use the spirit rose fire to feel it? Although I used the power of the spirit rose fire to see more powerful magical weapons, none of them emitted stronger emotions than this pair of heavy swords. Moreover, they are of the yin and yang fire element. I clenched my teeth and chose them. It's really the right choice. The leader of the flaming bar said, That's right. These heavy swords can only emit their own emotions when they meet a master who is truly suitable for them. The emotions you feel are their soul, which is also the sword's soul. After thousands of years, without the existence of the heavy sword's core or the driving force of the heaven jade, the sword's soul still hasn't dissipated. Instead, it can transmit such strong emotions to you. This is enough to prove their quality. When these two heavy swords combine into one, not only do they hide their own magical aura, they also hide the true nature of their soul. Yin and Yang are in harmony, waiting for rebirth. From your point of view, you're lucky. But from their point of view, aren't they also lucky? If I'm not wrong, when this pair of heavy swords choose their masters, it will either be two magic masters who possess extreme Yang fire and extreme Yin fire respectively and have similar magical powers, or it will be someone like you who possesses two elements at the same time. Without a doubt, you are their best choice. Ji Dong asked doubtfully, why do they need magical powers to be similar? Raging Flame said, because these two heavy swords were originally one. If you want to unleash their full power, you must combine the two swords and complement each other. Perhaps it's because this sword itself is too heaven-defying that it was split into two halves. When they possess all of the jade of heaven and fuse into one, then they will even surpass the scope of a divine weapon. Surpass the scope of a divine weapon? Ji Dong's eyes widened and were filled with disbelief. The flaming bar said faintly, to put it simply, it's like when your ice of flames and the brilliant sun all came into contact. If it's just one, it would only be a killing move. However, when they come into contact, it will turn into a super killing move. If I'm not wrong, the heaven jade in the core of these two heavy swords disappeared because they unleashed too much power. Ji Dong, from now on, you have to devote yourself to the cultivation of the divine fusion art. You can put aside the increase in magical power for the time being and focus on the cultivation of the divine fusion art to the highest level. Fuse these two heavy swords into your body. Your fire of the soul is the product of the combination of the origin flame of chaos and your mental strength. Although you don't have the heaven jade, your fire of the soul can completely release the chaos chi. When the chaos chi is condensed to a certain extent, it will turn into a liquid or even a solid state. That will be the chaos that is purer than the heaven jade. There's a strange formation between these two heavy swords that has a keen and special sense towards the chaos chi. After fusing them into your body, not only will you be providing them with the chaos chi, they will also help you refine your fire of the soul. This is the best way to train your fire of the soul. At the same time, having this pair of divine swords can be said to have opened up a shortcut for you. Shortcut? A shortcut to become a saint? Flaming Bar rarely commented on an item for such a long time. It was clear that this pair of great swords had given her quite a shock. I understand. After tomorrow's battle, I will work hard to practice the Fusion Divine Incantation. The key to the Fusion Divine Incantation is control. Control of the transformation of one's own mana. After entering the 5-element space today, I have a vague feeling that this Fusion Divine Incantation is like opening up a 5-element space in my body, but it is not as big as the 5-element space. It can be opened according to one's own attributes. My soul fire contains chaos, which itself contains all 5 elements. This Fusion Divine Incantation seems to be able to make up for its flaws. Flaming Bar, don't worry. I will definitely complete the Fusion Divine Incantation as soon as possible and fuse the two great swords into my body. Flaming Bar smiled and said, the 5-element space has many mysteries. There are still many parts of your 5 elements formation that you have not comprehended. Take advantage of today's feeling of the 5-element space and practice here for the night. It just so happens that there are 10-element paragons here, which will be beneficial to your comprehension. Ji Dong said with a bitter face. Aren't I going to sleep? Look, this is such a big bed. I won't touch you. I have to protect you. Flaming Bar was stunned. In an instant, her pretty face had already turned bright red. She said, scoundrel, what are you thinking? Last time was just an accident. Jean and I will each have a room. You can practice in the hall. No, Ji Dong screamed in his heart, but seeing the determined look on Flaming Bar's face, he did not dare to refute. Even though there was still a long time before night fell, Ji Dong already felt that the night was long and he was not in the mood to sleep. This feeling did not last for too long. Very soon, Ji Dong entered into his own comprehension. The appearance of illusion reality, five element space touched him greatly. Whether it was the five elements formation or the fusion of divine arts, it gave him a lot of inspiration. Vaguely, Ji Dong felt that he was about to break through again. Although after his strength had increased to the level of 6 crowns, every small breakthrough became very difficult. With the help of the fire of the soul, it could be said that there was almost no danger of chi deviation. A day passed quickly. Poor Ji Dong could only spend his time in cultivation. The doors of the 2 rooms were tightly shut. Ji Dong obviously had no feelings for Ah Jin. He did not have that kind of feelings for Ah Jin in the first place. Now that Ah Jin had a strange weapon from the eunuch maker, it would be strange if Ji Dong did not keep a respectful distance from him. In the morning, a knock on the door woke Ji Dong up from his cultivation state. He opened the door and saw 2 women in white standing outside with trays in their hands. Ji Dong actually knew one of them. It was the guide when he first came to the Magician Guild, the girl that he had a good impression of. The Magician Guild's arrangements were really thorough. Respected guest, this is the breakfast prepared for you. Vice President Hilo said to invite you to the hall on the first floor of the guild after breakfast. The eyes of the girl who knew Ji Dong flickered. If it was not for Ji Dong saving her last time, she would have been humiliated. She naturally had a good impression of this 4-star magician at such a young age. Unfortunately, Ji Dong would not receive her flowing eyes at all. He turned a blind eye to the disappointed look of the girl in white. It was not that Ji Dong's heart was cold, but his heart was really too full. Other than the flaming bar, there was no place for other girls. When Ah Jin walked out of the room, she had already changed into her golden armor. Ji Dong really suspected that if it was not because the room was too small, she would have directly carried the eunuch maker golden scissors on her shoulder. The flaming bar was still wearing a cloth dress and a bamboo hat, trying to cover her peerless appearance and perfect temperament as much as possible. There was very little food in the flaming bar. Other than the wine that Ji Dong mixed, she was not very interested in food. Ji Dong had once asked the flaming bar why, and the flaming bar's answer was very simple. There were impurities in the food, and she was born purely from the fire element. If she ate too much human food, it would affect her body, so she only tasted it and stopped. She then used the flame to refine the impurities. Flaming bar, I want to discuss something with you. Those 2 swords don't have a name yet. I'm going to give them a name each. The flaming bar said, just give them a name. There's no need to discuss it with me. Ji Dong looked at the flaming bar, and his gaze changed slightly. Ah Jin, who was beside him, could clearly feel the emotions that Ji Dong exuded when he mixed wine. For some reason, when she felt this kind of emotion coming from Ji Dong, Ah Jin had a special feeling in her heart. The memory imprinted on her by the flaming bar's burning passion immediately surfaced in her mind again. She turned her head away and actually did not dare to look at Ji Dong again. The flaming bar also noticed a change in Ji Dong and asked, "What's wrong?" Ji Dong said, "I'm going to name the Yang Flame Red Sword Lai and the Yin Flame Blue Sword Flame Flame. The 2 swords together will be your name, so I have to ask for your opinion." Lai Flame, flaming bar. Hearing Ji Dong's words and seeing the deep emotion in his eyes, the flaming bar's gaze immediately softened. She did not say much and only nodded lightly like Hyoheim. Ji Dong was overjoyed. This was what he had thought of last night, and the flaming bar had actually agreed. Looking at the 2 blushes on her face and her beautiful appearance, Ji Dong really wanted to pounce on her, hold her delicate face, and kiss it twice. Of course, this was only limited to the lewd thoughts in his heart. After eating breakfast, this time, Ji Dong took the initiative to hold the flaming bar's soft, boneless hand. The flaming bar did not resist and allowed him to hold her hand. She discovered that her resistance towards Ji Dong was showing a trend of declining, and obtaining the raging and flame dual swords made her see a glimmer of hope that she had been looking forward to in her heart. Arriving at the guild hall, there were already over 100 magicians waiting there. Ji Dong was secretly shocked. Looking at them, these 100 magicians were emitting the aura of at least 6 crown magicians. On each of their chests, there was also at least an 8-star guild badge. The Magician Guild was indeed the Magician Guild. Such a force was enough to decide a war. Among these 100 or so magicians, there were more than 10 who were at least 8-crown magicians. It was extremely difficult for any country to find so many top-notch magicians. Every magician was wearing a magic armor. From the color of the armor, one could distinguish their different attributes. Without exception, these 100 or so people should be the core strength of the entire Magician Guild. Today's war could be said to be a matter of life and death for the Magician Guild. It was normal for them to gather such a huge amount of power. Vice President Shiluo was also wearing a military uniform. As an Earth Element magician, he wore a bright yellow armor and did not conceal the magic on his body at all. Ji Dong understood that he was boosting the morale of the Magician Guild. The entire Magician Guild was ready, and the two major guilds are going to have a decisive battle today. Chapter 234. Under Hilo's arrangement, Ji Dong and the other two stayed in the VIP suite specially prepared by the Magician Union to entertain distinguished guests. Compared to the one they stayed in at the hotel last time, this suite was much bigger and luxuriously decorated. It even catered to the needs of the guest cultivation, so much so that 10 different types of 5 elements divine stones were used to make meditation areas suitable for any kind of magician to cultivate. However, to Ji Dong's great disappointment, this suite actually had 2 bedrooms, both with very big beds, velvet quilts, pillows, and extremely comfortable. Why do they get 2 beds? They really have nothing better to do. Ji Dong secretly criticized in his heart. Ji Dong, what are you thinking about? The flaming bar took off his bamboo hat and revealed his perfect face. No matter how outstanding Ajin was, when the flaming bar revealed his true colors, he would be overshadowed. Nothing. Ji Dong looked at the flaming bar with a slight panic like a child who was caught stealing candy. The flaming bar snorted and lowered his voice. You're thinking of bad things, aren't you? Nope. I'm thinking of good things. Ji Dong chuckled. As the relationship between the two grew closer, he was no longer as reserved towards the flaming bar as before. His respect for him gradually decreased, and his intimacy increased. The flaming bar rolled his eyes at him and said, You can't even think of good things. It seems like only your own choice is the most correct. Even I couldn't see the secret of those 2 giant swords today. If you didn't pick them out, I would only think that they were the most common magic weapons. The magic of these 2 weapons is extremely compatible. Although they have different attributes, their bodies seem to be made of the same metal. They can hide their own aura to the point that even I can't detect them. No wonder the Magician Union couldn't see through their secret for so many years. Ji Dong smiled bitterly. Unfortunately, I'm afraid they will never be able to recover their original appearance. Wouldn't we need 1 or 2 tons of heaven jade to fully embed them? Where can I find such a huge heaven jade? If there really is such a thing, I'm afraid it would be shattered by the heavenly lightning before I can even touch it. This thing is heaven-defying. Raging Flame smiled and said, Although the jade of heaven was produced at the beginning of the primal chaos and absorb a large amount of primal chaos chi, you don't have to think too highly of them. If you absorb so much jade of heaven by yourself, it will only be able to raise you to the 99th level of saint rank. Only saint? I've never heard of a saint among the wizards of the entire continent. Ji Dong looked at the flaming bar and was speechless. The flaming bar shook his head gently and said, That's hard to say. You humans have greater potential than any other race. Not to mention saint, it's possible for you to become a god. It's just that it's a little more difficult. Moreover, don't forget that although you can't have that many heaven jade, you have an advantage that ordinary people can't reach. That is the soul fire. Tell me first, why did you choose these 2 heavy swords? Ji Dong said, At that time, I seemed to feel that they were pouring out their hearts to me. They were pouring out their hearts full of desire, eager and affectionate, hoping to become my weapon. Didn't you tell me to use the spirit rose fire to feel it? Although I used the power of the spirit rose fire to see more powerful magical weapons, none of them emitted stronger emotions than this pair of heavy swords. Moreover, they are of the yin and yang fire element. I clenched my teeth and chose them. It's really the right choice. The leader of the flaming bar said, That's right. This pair of heavy swords can only emit their own emotions when they meet a master who is truly suitable for them. The emotion that you feel is their soul, which is also the sword's soul. After thousands of years, without the existence of the heavy sword's core or the driving force of the heaven jade, the sword's soul still hasn't dissipated. Instead, it can transmit such strong emotions to you. It's enough to prove their quality. When these two heavy swords combine into one, not only do they hide their own magical aura, they also hide the true nature of their soul. Yin and Yang are in harmony, waiting for rebirth. From your point of view, you're lucky. But from their point of view, aren't they also lucky? If I'm not wrong, when this pair of heavy swords choose their master, it's either two magicians with extreme Yang fire and extreme Yin fire respectively, and their magical power must appear at the same time, or they must have two elements like you. Without a doubt, you're the best choice for them. Ji Dong asked doubtfully, why do they need magical power to be similar? The flaming bar said, because these two heavy swords were originally one. If you want to unleash their full power, you must combine the two swords to complement each other. Perhaps it's because this sword itself is too heaven-defying, so it was divided into two halves. When they have all the heaven jade and combine into one, then they will even surpass the category of divine weapons. Surpass the category of divine weapons? Ji Dong's eyes widened, filled with disbelief. The flaming bar said faintly, to put it simply, it's like when your ice of flames and the brilliant sun all came into contact. If it's just one of them, it would only be a sure kill technique. However, when they come into contact, it will turn into a sure kill technique. If I'm not wrong, the heaven jade in the core of these two heavy swords disappeared because they unleashed too much power. Ji Dong, from now on, you have to devote yourself to the cultivation of the fusion divine art. You can temporarily put aside the increase in magical power and focus on the cultivation of the fusion divine art to the highest level. Fuse these two heavy swords into your body. Your fire of the soul is the product of the combination of the origin flame of chaos and your mental strength. Although you don't have the heaven jade, your fire of the soul can completely release the chaos chi. When the chaos chi is condensed to a certain extent, it will turn into a liquid or even a solid state. That will be chaos that is purer than the heaven jade. There's a strange formation between these two heavy swords that has a keen and special sense towards the chaos chi. After fusing them into your body, not only will you be providing them with the chaos chi, but they will also help you to refine your fire of the soul. This is the best way to train your fire of the soul. At the same time, having this pair of divine swords can be said to have opened up a shortcut for you. Shortcut? A shortcut to become a saint? Flaming Bar rarely commented on an item for such a long time. It was clear that this pair of great swords had given her quite a shock. I understand. After tomorrow's battle, I will work hard to practice the Fusion Divine Incantation. The key to the Fusion Divine Incantation is control. Control of the transformation of one's own mana. After entering the 5-element space today, I have a vague feeling that this Fusion Divine Incantation is like opening up a 5-element space in my body, but it is not as big as the 5-element space. It can be opened according to one's own attributes. My soul fire contains chaos, which itself contains all 5 elements. This Fusion Divine Incantation seems to be able to make up for its flaws. Flaming Bar, don't worry. I will definitely complete the Fusion Divine Incantation as soon as possible and fuse the 2 great swords into my body. Flaming Bar smiled and said, the 5-element space has many mysteries. There are still many parts of your 5 elements formation that you have not comprehended. Take advantage of today's feeling of the 5-element space and practice here for the night. It just so happens that there are 10 element parangons here, which will be beneficial to your comprehension. Ji Dong said with a bitter face. Aren't I going to sleep? Look, this is such a big bed, I won't touch you. I have to protect you. Flaming Bar was stunned. In an instant, her pretty face had already turned bright red. She said, Scoundrel, what are you thinking? Last time was just an accident. Jean and I will each have a room. You can practice in the hall. No. Ji Dong screamed at his heart, but seeing the determined look on Flaming Bar's face, he did not dare to refute. Even though there was still a long time before night fell, Ji-dong already felt that the night was long and he was not in the mood to sleep. This feeling did not last for too long. Very soon, Ji-dong entered into his own comprehension. The appearance of illusion reality, five-element space, touched him greatly. Whether it was the five elements formation or the fusion of divine arts, it gave him a lot of inspiration. Vaguely, Ji-dong felt that he was about to make a breakthrough. Although after his strength had increased to the level of 6 crowns, every small breakthrough became very difficult. With the help of the fire of the soul, it could be said that there was almost no danger of chi deviation for Ji-dong. A day passed quickly. Poor Ji-dong could only spend his time in cultivation. The doors of the 2 rooms were tightly shut. Ji-dong clearly did not have any feelings for Ah-jin. He did not have that kind of feelings for Ah-jin in the first place. Now that Ah-jin had a strange weapon from the eunuch maker, it would be strange if Ji-dong did not keep a respectful distance from him. In the morning, a knock on the door woke Ji-dong up from his cultivation state. He opened the door and saw 2 women in white standing outside with trays in their hands. Ji-dong actually knew one of them. It was the guide when he first came to the Magician Guild, the girl that he had a good impression of. The Magician Guild's arrangements were really thorough. Respected guest, this is the breakfast prepared for you. Vice President Shi Luo invited you to the hall on the first floor of the guild after breakfast. The eyes of the girl who knew Ji-dong flickered. If it was not for Ji-dong saving her last time, she would have been humiliated. She naturally had a good impression of this 4-star magician at such a young age. Unfortunately, Ji-dong would not receive her flowing eyes at all. He turned a blind eye to the disappointed look of the girl in white. It was not that Ji-dong's heart was cold, but his heart was really too full. Other than the Flaming Bar, there was no place for other girls. When Ah-jin walked out of the room, she had already changed into her golden armor. Ji-dong really suspected that if it was not because the room was too small, she would have directly carried the eunuch maker golden scissors on her shoulder. The Flaming Bar was still wearing a cloth dress and a bamboo hat, trying to cover her peerless appearance and perfect temperament as much as possible. There was very little food in the Flaming Bar. Other than the wine that Ji-dong mixed, she was not very interested in food. Ji-dong had once asked the Flaming Bar why, and the Flaming Bar's answer was very simple. There were impurities in the food, and she was born purely from the fire element. If she ate too much human food, it would affect her body, so she only tasted it and stopped. She then used the flame to refine the impurities. Flaming Bar, I want to discuss something with you. Those 2 swords don't have a name yet. I'm going to give them a name each. The Flaming Bar said, just give them a name. There's no need to discuss it with me. Ji-dong looked at the Flaming Bar, and his gaze changed slightly. Ah-jin, who was beside him, could clearly feel the emotions that Ji-dong exuded when he mixed wine. For some reason, when she felt this kind of emotion coming from Ji-dong, Ah-jin had a special feeling in her heart. The memory imprinted on her by the Flaming Bar's burning passion immediately surfaced in her mind again. She turned her head away and actually did not dare to look at Ji-dong again. The Flaming Bar also noticed the change in Ji-dong and asked, what's wrong? Ji-dong said, I'm going to name the Yang Flame Red Sword Lai and the Yin Flame Blue Sword Flame Flame. The 2 swords together will be your name, so I have to ask for your opinion. Lai Flame, Flaming Bar. Hearing Ji-dong's words and looking at the deep emotion in his eyes, the Flaming Bar's gaze immediately softened. She did not say much and only nodded lightly like Hyoheim. Ji-dong was overjoyed. This was what he had thought of last night, and the Flaming Bar had actually agreed. Looking at the 2 blushes on her face and her beautiful appearance, Ji-dong really wanted to pounce on her, hold her delicate face, and kiss it twice. Of course, this was only limited to the lewd thoughts in his heart. After eating breakfast, this time, Ji-dong took the initiative to hold the Flaming Bar's soft, boneless hand. The Flaming Bar did not resist and allowed him to hold her hand. She discovered that her resistance towards Ji-dong was showing a trend of declining, and obtaining the raging and flame dual swords made her see a glimmer of hope that she had been looking forward to in her heart. Arriving at the guild hall, there were already over 100 magicians waiting there. Ji-dong was secretly shocked. Looking at them, these 100 magicians were emitting the aura of at least 6 crown magicians. On each of their chests, there was also at least an 8-star guild badge. The Magician Guild was indeed the Magician Guild. This kind of power was enough to decide a war. Among these 100 magicians, there were more than a dozen who were at least 8 crown magicians. It was extremely difficult for any country to find so many top-notch magicians. Every magician was wearing a magic armor. From the color of the armor, one could distinguish their different attributes. Without exception, these 100 magicians should be the core strength of the entire Magician Guild. Today's war could be said to be a matter of life and death for the Magician Guild. It was normal for them to gather such a huge amount of power. Vice President Shi Luo was also wearing a military uniform. As an earth element magician, he wore a bright yellow armor and did not conceal the magic on his body. Ji-dong understood that he was boosting the morale of the Magician Guild. The entire Magician Guild was ready, and the two major guilds were going to have a decisive battle today. Chapter 235. Would it be enough if I were to join in? A cold and gloomy voice rang out quietly. In the thick water vapor, a similarly tall but gloomy figure slowly emerged. It was not just a person, but also a purple dragon. The purple dragon was dazzling, and the gloomy and cold air instantly caused a layer of frost to appear in the already dark air. Frost Dragon. Ji-dong had just mentioned Frost Dragon Feng Shuang when a real frost dragon appeared in front of him. This frost dragon was clearly an adult 10th grade giant dragon. Its body was exactly the same as Feng Shuang, who had almost taken his life. Its cold eyes stared at the magicians of the Magician's Guild, as if it was going to devour them at any time. The slender woman sitting on the back of the frost dragon looked to be in her 50s. Her body was even taller than the 9th water sovereign, Shui Mingwei. She stood on the thick skull of the frost dragon and looked down at the Magician's Guild. Other than the coldness in her eyes, no other emotions could be seen. Lung Feng Yun, Deng Ming. This time, Shi Luo's expression finally changed. Deng Ming was the highest title for the 10th water sovereign. The Magician's Guild didn't just send one, but two. More importantly, the 10th water sovereign, Deng Ming, was paired with the Yang water sovereign, Shui Mingwei. With the Yin and Yang water sovereigns, there was no need for anyone else to do anything. Just the two of them were enough to annihilate everyone from the Magician's Guild. The sky was dark, the earth was purple. The appearance of the two water element experts caused the world to be completely shrouded in water elements. Every demon master of the Mage Guild had an extremely ugly expression on their faces, and they were even suppressed by the pressure emitted by the two sovereign experts to the point that they couldn't move. Even the 8 crown demon masters were suppressed to the point that it was extremely uncomfortable. The only one who wasn't affected was probably the Raging Flame beside Ji-dong. Raging Flame stood there, still as calm as ever, but her voice rang out from the depths of Ji-dong's soul. If they're really going all out, we'll return to the core immediately. 10 seconds isn't enough for the Magic Skills Guild to annihilate the Wizards Guild. Listening to the Flaming Bar's words, Ji-dong's heart was heavy. He valued his promise more than his life. He really did not want to run away without a fight. However, the one who said this was the Flaming Bar. He could not help but frown at the contradiction in his heart. Meanwhile, the pressure from the outside world was getting stronger. Just as Ji-dong was feeling conflicted, the Flaming Bar suddenly exclaimed softly, "No, there should be more variables." Shi Luo was still standing at the very front of the magicians of the Magician's Guild, enduring the greatest pressure. At this moment, the strength of this vice president was revealed. Facing the pressure of 2 supreme being experts, he was still able to maintain his composure, and his voice was still as calm as ever. "Lord Deng Ming, the Magician's Guild has never offended the Lung family. I don't know why you're making things difficult for us today. If I remember correctly, you're still our honorary elder." Lung Fengyin said indifferently, "The Magician's Guild and the Magic Skill Guild, one of them is enough. Today is the opportunity to merge them. If you win, the Magic Skill Guild will merge with the Magician's Guild, and vice versa." Mingyue is my good friend for many years, and the two guilds merging is a good thing. Not to mention, I'm already an official elder of the Magic Skill Guild. Shiluo, we can be considered as acquaintances. You won't have any chance, just give up. Even if Shangwan Inkong comes back, you won't have a chance either. Hearing the two words, Lung family, Ji Dong immediately understood. When he had just entered the Heavenly Divine Academy, he had already known Lung Yu. At that time, Lung Yu had relied on her powerful control of the water element to become a genius girl of the Gue water element. She came from the Lung family, and Zhu Rong had told Hyoheim about the Lung family. In the radiant Five Elements continent, there were a few thousand-years-old families, and all of these families were extremely powerful. Almost every family had a supreme being, and their influence was spread all over the continent. Many nobles were dependent on these families, such as Lung Yu and Elder Lung of the Gue water element in the Heavenly Divine Academy. They were all from the Lung family. As for this Lord Deng Ming, she should be the current head of the Lung family, and also the elder sister of the Gue water element in the Heavenly Divine Academy. Shiluo was not afraid at all. He said in a clear voice, "Our magician guild has been established for more than 1,000 years. For 1,000 years, helping all magicians is our responsibility, and we are the acknowledged home of all magicians." The Magic Skill Guild was established at least a few hundred years later than us, and we only focus on the development of magic skills. Wanting to swallow our magician guild is just a joke. Today, since the two supreme beings insist on doing this, our magician guild will accompany you to the end. Let's do as we have agreed, 10 matches to determine the winner. The frost dragon in the sky had already descended from the sky, carrying the god Empress Shui Mingyu, and arrived beside Lung Fengyun, two rank 10 giant dragons, and two supreme beings with 9 crowns. In front of this kind of pressure, Shi Luo was able to straighten his chest and say such words. It was enough to attract their attention. Shui Mingyu said indifferently, "Since it is like this, I will fulfill your wish. Fengyun and I will not fight twice. Let's see if your magician guild has enough power. Whether our magician guild has enough power or not is not up to you to judge. Shui Mingyu, you despicable person, you dare to plot to swallow the magician guild while I am not in the guild. Today, I swear I will not let you go." Just when the two supreme water supreme beings were suppressing the magician guild, suddenly, a voice filled with anger rang out. On the ground of the magician guild, the purple color was washed away like a tide, and a thick layer of gray quickly spread out. In a blink of an eye, it had already protected the 100 magicians of the magician guild, blocking the pressure of the two supreme water supreme beings outside. The ground shook violently, followed by a deep roar. A wide crack appeared, and a gray figure slowly rose up from the crack, as if it was supported by a platform. The thick aura also became thicker and thicker as it appeared. Shui Mingyu's expression changed slightly. "Shangwan Inkong, you actually came back. No wonder Shi Luo is so fearless." The huge figure that appeared from the ground was an extremely huge magical beast, but it was not a dragon. It was a monster with gray scales all over its body. This monster's body had reached a terrifying length of 30 meters. It was extremely thick. It looked like a pangolin, but it was much more ferocious than a pangolin. Its huge body was filled with a sense of danger, especially its 8-meter-long tail, which was filled with barbs, flickering with a faint gray light. On the huge head of this monster, there was also a person, a woman. She was well-proportioned, only about 1.6 meters tall. She looked like a person in her 30s. Compared to the two supreme water supreme beings, she was much younger. Of course, from her aura, it could be seen that her actual age was not as what it seemed. This person was very beautiful. It could be seen that she was also a peerless beauty when she was young. President. As soon as this person arrived, the Magic Master Guild's morale immediately increased. Almost all the Magic Masters called out with an urgent tone. Ji Dong thought in his heart, "This is interesting. The president of the Magic Master Guild has arrived in time." The gap between the two sides finally narrowed a little. For what he heard just now, this president of the Magic Master Guild should be called Shangwan Inkong. It seems that he should be a 6th Earth Supreme Being, The highest title of the sixth Earth Supreme Being is Diji, His Majesty Diji. Ever since that time in the Central Plain City, because of him, 3 Supreme Beings appeared in the Central Plain City. This was the first time he saw so many experts gathered together. And this time, the 3 Supreme Beings that appeared were people he had never seen before. The continent was indeed full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Flaming Bar, what kind of magical beast is this? Why haven't I seen it before? Jidong asked in a low voice. Flaming Bar said, this is also a kind of dragon. Although it can't fly, it is a true giant dragon and has the title of the Earth Dragon Ancestor. It has the Earth attribute, and as long as it stands on the ground, it can face any 10th-rank giant dragon, and it won't be inferior. Its strength is quite valiant. We also have this kind of dragon in the core world, and its scientific name is Earth Emperor Giant Dragon, and it is also one of the dragons with the greatest physical strength. After hearing Flaming Bar's words, Jidong thought in his heart, it seems that most of these Supreme Being experts have chosen dragons as their mounts. Indeed, apart from the heavenly stem divine beasts, the dragon can be said to be the most powerful magical beast, possessing the strength of 10th rank. Only his master's wife has obtained the only heavenly stem divine beast, the flying serpent, that hasn't been sealed. Shangguan Yinkong's expression was very unsightly, and an aura of hatred continuously spread out from her body. Unlike the indifference of the 2 Supreme Being experts, she didn't hide her anger at all. Shangguan Yinkong, I never thought that we would meet again. Shui Mingyue and Lung Fengyun looked at each other, and they could see the determination in each other's eyes. Shangguan Yinkong's timely return had undoubtedly ruined their plans, but since things had already developed to this point, there was no turning back. The enmity between the 2 guilds was already set in stone. As they looked at each other, the 2 Water Supreme Being experts had already made up their minds. They had to make the president of the Devil Guild, Shangguan Yinkong, stay here today. Otherwise, even if they annexed the Devil Guild in the future, the days of the Devil Skills Guild wouldn't be good. If a Supreme Being expert were to launch a sneak attack, the Devil Skills Guild would be in big trouble. Furthermore, Shangguan Yinkong was an Earth Supreme Being expert and was the king of the Earth, so it was very convenient for him to move underground. Shangguan Yinkong sneered. Shui Mingyue, you're the one who didn't expect this, right? You're dreaming if you want to annex my Devil Skills Guild. Don't you want to have 10 matches? All right, come, let's have the first match. I really want to see to what extent your 9th water demonic energy has reached after not seeing you for a few decades. Among the 5 elements, Earth countered water. Although 6th Earth was Yin Earth and had a limited ability to counter 9th water, which was Yang water, the strength of these Supreme Being experts were almost the same. A slight counter of the 5 elements was enough to decide the outcome of the battle. If they would really fight one-on-one, Shui Mingyue might not be Shangguan Yinkong's opponent. Although Shangguan Yinkong looked younger than Shui Mingyue and Lung Fengyun, in reality, she was older than the 2 Water Supreme Beings by 10 years. She had also made a name for herself much earlier than them. Although it was impossible for her to fight 1-on-2, it would be extremely difficult for them to win against her in a 1-on-1 battle. Shangguan Yinkong had issued a challenge with his identity as the president of the Devil Skills Guild, so Shui Mingyue definitely couldn't back down. Otherwise, it would be bad for their morale. The frost dragon beneath her slowly raised its head and stared coldly at the earthly emperor dragon beneath Shangguan Yinkong. In the air, the 6th Earth and 9th Water demonic energy burst forth at the same time, and the battle was about to begin. Just at this moment, a voice suddenly rang out from afar. Your Majesties, since today's battle is to decide the ownership of the 2 guilds, there must be a witness. Why don't you allow this king to be the witness? When this voice appeared, Jidong's body instantly trembled. He looked in the direction of the voice, and just as he had expected, the Central Plains Empire's Prince of Equality, Ji Yunsheng, was standing proudly on the head of a sparkling and translucent diamond dragon. The diamond dragon spread its wings and flew at a low altitude, bringing Jidong's body rapidly towards them. Along with Ji Yunsheng's appearance, a loud rumble slowly rang out from the azure plains in the distance. Gradually, A large number of yellow figures appeared at the end of the horizon. Their speed was incomparably fast, and in the blink of an eye, they were already within 10 miles of each other. Jidong had seen these yellow figures not long ago. Weren't they the Diamond Army, which was known as the #1 army in the continent? With Wolf in the lead, a total of 10 diamond war gods clad in heavy armor stood proudly on the heads of their level 9 diamond giant dragons. Although Ji Yunsheng had flown over alone, the Diamond Army behind him had 10,000 people holding the fort. Their might was actually not inferior to the 3 honorable martial artists. The entire Diamond Army, the #1 army in the continent, had actually been mobilized for this battle. Seeing the Prince of Equality, Ji Yunsheng, and the Diamond Army, Shui Mingwei and Lung Fengyun's expressions finally changed. Although they were honorable martial artists and did not care about armies, this was not an ordinary army. Previously, when Ji Dong had seen what the Annihilation Army could do, the Diamond Army could only do better. If 10,000 people from the Diamond Army joined forces, even an honorable martial artist would have to temporarily avoid them. Moreover, the Diamond Army represented the entire Central Plains Empire, the strongest country in the continent. No one dared to belittle them. Back then, when the siblings Yin and Zhaoyang had come to the Central Plains city, the royal family of the Central Plains Empire had not made any preparations. In the city, the Diamond Army could not be deployed at all and could only wait outside the city. If they were in the wilderness, with Ji Yunsheng and His Majesty Big Dipper Ji Zhongxin leading the Diamond Army, the siblings would definitely not be able to win. Chapter 236. Ji Yunsheng's mount flew closer very quickly. It was also a 9th-ranked diamond dragon. Even though its might wasn't obvious in front of the 3 10th-ranked giant dragons, Ji Yunsheng didn't seem to be afraid of the 3 Supreme Being experts in front of him. Shui Mingyue's voice became even colder as she said, "Shangguan Yinkong, I didn't think that you would actually find people from the Middle-earth Empire to interfere in the matters between our 2 guilds. Since when did your magic guild have such a close relationship with the army?" Shangguan Yinkong snorted coldly and said, "Shui Mingyue, you old geezer, you don't have to be so sarcastic here. I wasn't the one who found Yunsheng and the others, and I didn't even know that they would come. Today's matter is a battle between our 2 guilds and has nothing to do with the officials." At this moment, the Diamond Dragon had already stopped 100 meters away from the 3 Supreme Beings. Ji Yunsheng stood on top of the Diamond Dragon's head, and his gaze first landed on Ji Dong. Even though it didn't stop, Ji Dong could clearly see a faint smile in Ji Yunsheng's eyes. If he had to describe this smile, perhaps the word benevolent would be more suitable. Seeing this smile, Ji Dong suddenly had a strange feeling in his heart. It seemed that his grandfather had come for him. He tilted his head slightly and looked at the Magic Guild's Thunder Guild's president, Shi Luo. He just happened to catch the slightly proud smile on Shi Luo's face. Clearly, he had known about the appearance of the King of Equality, Ji Yunsheng. Ji Yunsheng greets Your Majesty de Ji, Your Majesty God Empress, Your Majesty Deng Ming. Standing on the head of his mount, Ji Yunsheng bowed to the 3 Supreme Being experts in front of him. Lung Fengyun waved his hand and said, "King of Equality, let's dispense with the formalities. You came here today and even brought your Diamond Army. What is the meaning of this? Today's matter is a private matter between our 2 guilds, and it's on the Azure Plains. It doesn't affect the Middle-earth Empire, so it's best that you don't interfere." Shui Ming, you would be wary of Ji Yunsheng because the Magic Skills Guild headquarters was located in the Central Plains city of the Central Plains Empire. However, Lung Fengyun wouldn't. Her Lung family's roots were in the Northwater Empire, so she naturally wouldn't be wary of the Central Plains Empire. Ji Yunsheng calmly said, "Your Majesties, please don't misunderstand. I've also heard that the Magicians Guild and the Magic Skill Guild are going to hold such an important competition today. Furthermore, it's also within the borders of my Middle-earth Empire. As the host, my Middle-earth Empire naturally has to show its support. Your Majesties, please rest assured. Today, the Diamond Corps and I are only here to witness the arrival of the historic moment of the 2 guilds' merger. I believe that I should be qualified to do so. I swear on the honor of the King Equality clan that I will not show any favoritism. Hearing Ji Yunxing's words, Shui Mingyu and Lung Fengyun were clearly startled. The two sovereign experts looked at each other, and their expressions eased up a little. Shui Mingyu said, "That would be for the best. With His Highness the King Equality being the judge of this competition, it will save us the trouble of someone refusing to acknowledge it after the fact." Although Ji Yunsheng had expressed that he wouldn't interfere in the competition, the appearance of the Diamond Core had clearly put an end to the thoughts of silencing the two sovereign experts. Shangguan Yinkong looked at Hyoheim Yunsheng with some doubt. Aside from doubt, her gaze was extremely gentle as she said, "Yunsheng, why are you here?" Ji Yunsheng smiled faintly and said, "Your Majesty to Ji, why don't we chat after this competition is over?" Just like what Her Majesty God Empress has said, the main reason I've brought the Diamond Core here is to bear witness, so that no one will acknowledge the final battle between the two guilds. Shangguan Yinkong nodded and said in a flat tone, "That's fine too. If I die in battle today, you can collect my corpse and cremate it. My ashes can be placed in the Devil Master Guild. Even if I die, I won't let those two old fogies have their way." Her voice was filled with determination. Hearing her words, Lung Fengyun and Shui Mingyu's expressions became much uglier. One must know that if a sovereign expert were to go all out, it would definitely be an extremely terrifying matter. "Old Water Devil, come. Let's have a first match." As he spoke, the earthly emperor dragon beneath Shangguan Yinkong suddenly stomped its left forelimb on the ground. Instantly, a thunderous explosion resounded from the ground, forcefully pushing back the pressure from the two water majesties. Be it the magic masters of the Magic Association or the Magic Skills Association, all of them rapidly retreated without the slightest hesitation. What a joke! Although it was a rare opportunity to observe the fight between two sovereigns, if they were to get too close, they would probably be turned into ashes in the next instant. Lung Fengyun nodded towards Shui Mingyu. A chilling intent blossomed from Shui Mingyu's body. Just as Lung Fengyun was about to retreat, a loud and resounding voice suddenly resounded. This voice actually came from every corner of the earth, as if the entire earth had come to life. Why waste time? Why don't we combine the two matches? Yin-Yang Twin Waters against our Yin-Yang Twin Earths? This will simplify the competition. Following the appearance of the voice, Shangguan Yinkong's originally cold and furious expression suddenly changed, turning extremely pale. The blood drained from his face, and the aura he had just condensed instantly turned chaotic. On the other side, the faces of the two water majesties turned even more unsightly. Lung Fengyun instantly stopped retreating, his face sunken. A yellow figure swayed in the air, with an exceptionally gigantic diamond dragon following behind him. Without the assistance of a magical beast or wings, this person was simply walking in the air, as if gravity no longer had any effect on him. With every step he took, he would travel 100 meters. As he stood proudly against the wind, the sky that was originally covered by dark clouds miraculously lit up. Wherever this person passed, the dark clouds would scatter, allowing the rays of the sun to shine upon the earth once again, causing the dense water element in the air to become much weaker. The diamond colossal dragon landed on the ground. This was obviously a top-notch diamond colossal dragon at the level 10. It landed beside the earthen king colossal dragon, and the yellow figure floated down as well, landing right on top of the diamond colossal dragon's head. Ji Dong stared dumbfoundedly at the scene before him. This was truly a turn of events. Just a moment ago, the Devil Guild was being suppressed to the point where they couldn't retaliate. The two Supreme Being experts on the other side seemed like they could annihilate everyone from the Devil Guild at any time. But in the next moment, not only did the Diamond Corps led by the Prince of Equality of the Central Plains Empire come as a judge, there were even two Supreme Being experts. Shangguan Yinkong was still fine, but the person who appeared later was someone that Ji Dong recognized. It was his ancestor, the Supreme Being expert of the Prince of Equality's bloodline, Heavenly Dipper Ji Chongxin. In a sense, the bloodline of the Prince of Equality was also one of the great clans of the mainland, similar to the Long clan. However, Due to the difference in status, the Prince of Equality could be said to be one of the most powerful clans in the current world. Although Ji Yunsheng was the current Prince of Equality, he wasn't the clan leader. The clan leader was the heavenly dipper Ji Changxin, a supreme being of the earth element. Lively, how lively! The appearance of the Prince of Equality and the Diamond Core seemed to be a fair judgment, but there was no doubt that it was advantageous to the weaker party, the Devil Guild. And when the heavenly dipper Ji Changxin appeared, the original gap between the two parties had already disappeared. It could be said that the Devil Skills Guild's only advantage now was their numbers. And in terms of supreme being experts, Earth countered Water. Yin Yang Twin Water against Yin Yang Twin Earth. How could they win? Moreover, Ji Changxin himself was one of the strongest 9 Crowns experts. Facing Ji Changxin's arrival, the 3 supreme being experts from before all had different expressions. Shui Mingyue's expression was the ugliest, without a doubt. As for Shangwan Yinkong, he had a strange expression as he looked at Ji Changxin with a pale face. Not only did he not show any gratitude, he looked more like he wanted to eat Ji Changxin up. Lung Fengyun shouted, "Ji Changxin, has your Prince of Equality family decided to interfere in the battle between our 2 guilds?" Ji Changxin glanced at him coldly and said, "Lung Fengyun, this is the Central Plains Empire. You don't have the right to question me. If I shouldn't have come, then what about you? Your Lung family's foundation is in the Northwater Empire. Why did you come to my Central Plains Empire to stir up trouble?" Lung Fengyun laughed coldly. "I didn't come here to represent the Lung family. I only came here to represent myself. Mingwei is my best friend. What about you? Not only did your current Prince of Equality come, the Diamond Core came, and even you, the Heavenly Dipper Majesty, came. I want to ask, if your Prince of Equality family is not interfering in the battle between our 2 guilds, then what is it? What relationship do you have with Shangwan Yinkong?" Ji Changxin laughed disdainfully and said, "Don't worry. I remember the oath of the 5 great empires clearly. We will not interfere in the battle between any guilds. You should have heard Yin Sheng's words clearly. My Prince of Equality family is only here to be a witness. They will not interfere in the battle between our 2 guilds. As for me, do you think you're allowed to help Shui Mingyue in your own name, but I'm not allowed to help Yin Kong in my own name? You're asking about our relationship? What a joke. Since you want to deal with the Magic Guild, did you not even find out about our relationship? One day 100 years ago, Yin Kong became my wife. The 2 of you are bullying my wife. How can I not come out? What? Shangwan Yin Kong is your wife?" Shui Mingyue and Lung Fengyun said at the same time. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. They never knew that the Magic Guild's master, Shangwan Yin Kong, was actually the wife of Prince of Equality's Prince of Equality family's Prince of Heaven Dipper Ji Changxin. If they knew about this, they wouldn't have fought today. As if to verify Ji Changxin's words, Ji Yunsheng respectfully called out to Shangwan Yinkong, "Grandmother." Ji Changxin laughed coldly. "I think the 2 guilds should merge to prevent some clowns from not knowing how to conduct themselves. However, it should be the Magic Skill Guild merging with the Magic Guild. Get lost. I don't need you to care about my matters." Just as Ji Changxin was single-handedly suppressing Shui Mingyue and Lung Fengyun, Shangwan Yinkong suddenly opened her mouth. She was practically shouting at Ji Changxin. Ji Changxin's face revealed a trace of awkwardness. "Yinkong, I know you hate me. What happened back then was my fault. Why don't we work together to deal with the matter in front of us first? All these years, I've been looking for you everywhere. If it wasn't for this opportunity, you wouldn't have come back. Today, let me help you get rid of this malignant tumor of the Magic Skills Guild, and then I'll apologize to you." Shangwan Yinkong bit his lower lip and glared fiercely at Ji Changxin, then said, "You don't need to care about the matters of our Devil Guild. Ji Changxin, you hypocrite. I will never forgive you. I don't want to see you again. Get lost. I will never forget the humiliation you gave me." Ji Changxin let out a long sigh and said, "Yin Kong, can you give me a chance to explain? You have already been gone for dozens of years. We have finally met again with great difficulty. Don't tell me you are not even willing to listen to an explanation?" "No, I don't want to listen to your nonsense. Ji Changxin, whether I live or die, it is none of your business. If I die, I will be buried in the Magic Skill Guild. I have nothing to do with your prince equivalent clan. Ji Changxin said anxiously. In Kong, why are you still so stubborn? Can't you see that these two bastards wanted to kill you just now? Shangguan Inkong's eyes had already turned red, and tears were rolling in her eyes. However, the hatred in her gaze towards Ji Changxin was gradually increasing. So what if I live? So what if I die? Ji Changxin, you have ruined my life. I have already spent half my life in pain. Even if I die today, it is my own will. If I don't die, I will definitely go to the Prince Equivalent Palace to settle the debt with you. Ji Changxin's expression gradually calmed down. In Kong, since you won't listen to me and won't give me a chance to explain, then I won't say anything more. You will die without a doubt in a 1 versus 2 fight. Since you insist on dying, I won't stop you. However, do you still remember? When we made the oath of eternal love, we said that even if we were not born on the same day of the same month and year, we would rather die on the same day of the same month and year. Since you won't die today, how can I live alone? Only fresh blood can wash away my injustice. However, I must tell you that even if we go to another world, you will still be my wife. This has never changed in the past 100 years, and it will never change in the future. This Heavenly Dipper's words were resolute and decisive. When he finished speaking the last word, a resolute look appeared in his eyes. He suddenly flipped his hand and raised his right hand. An intense bright yellow light instantly erupted around his body, forming a circle of intense yellow light. In the next moment, he flipped his palm and actually slapped it towards Ji Changxin's head. Grandfather, no. Ji Yunsheng turned pale with fright. However, it was already too late for him to stop it. Ji Changxin had already made ample preparations before he committed suicide. That layer of yellow light was his strongest defensive technique. The earth element was known as the strongest in terms of defense. Furthermore, it was unleashed by the strongest earth element supreme in the world. Not to mention Ji Yunsheng. Even the 3 supreme being experts before him couldn't stop his palm before it reached him. Chapter 237. No one had expected His Majesty Heavenly Dipper Ji Zhangxin to be so unyielding. In a situation where Shangguan Inkong refused to listen to his explanation, he had chosen the most resolute method to resolve the grudge between the two parties. He was using his own blood and life to prove something to Shangguan Inkong. Shangguan Inkong was completely stunned. Shui Mingwei and Lung Fengyun were similarly stunned. Of course, even if they weren't affected by their emotions, they would definitely not take the initiative to save Ji Zhangxin. In a situation like this, Ji Zhangxin could be said to be the strongest person present. Without him, the Magic Skills Guild's chances of victory would greatly increase. Furthermore, there was clearly a huge problem between Ji Zhangxin and Shangguan Inkong. Once Ji Zhangxin died, Shangguan Inkong would very likely collapse on his own. The magic masters on both sides could not understand why Ji Zhangxin would do such a thing. They could not understand why Shangguan Inkong, as the president of the Magic Skills Guild, would actually give up on such a strong support and even speak so viciously to him. These two supreme being experts actually did not seem to have any intention of looking at the bigger picture. This was especially so for the Magic Skills Guild side. The Magic Masters all had looks of disbelief in their eyes. They thought to themselves, even if there's a problem between you and your husband, you should talk about it after this matter is over. Although the battle between the two great guilds had yet to begin, variables had already appeared several times. If there was one person who could understand Ji Zhangxin, it would be Ji Dong. When he heard the conversation between Ji Zhangxin and Shangguan Inkong, his first thought was that if the Flaming Bar also misunderstood him like this, he would probably disregard everything else and use his own death to prove his loyalty. Everything else in the outside world was not important. If even the person he loved deeply couldn't understand him, then he would have nothing left to live for. Brother Zhangxin, you can't. An aged and shocking voice rang out in the sky like a clap of thunder. Even a supreme being expert like Ji Zhangxin, when he heard this voice, his slapping palm slowed down by half a second. A dark blue light took advantage of this moment to break through the air like lightning. It twisted violently and actually drilled through Ji Zhongxin's defense, directly colliding with Ji Zhongxin's palm that was slapping down. Amidst the loud boom, a terrifying wave of chi scattered in all directions. The ground collapsed, and within a radius of 100 meters, the ground actually sank 5 meters from this collision. Dense earth elements mixed with cold black flames scattered in all directions. With such power, it could be seen that Ji Zhongxin had used his full strength in this palm strike, and was definitely not just for show. The blue figure instantly expanded, and as the intense black flames rose, he flipped over and said, "Why are you playing with suicide? I've lived for thousands of years, and I still haven't lived enough." Hearing this voice, Ji Dong's heart was instantly shaken. The excitement and ecstasy in his eyes could not be concealed. That dark blue figure had also completely revealed itself, with a pair of wings spread out on its back. It was none other than the divine beast forth fire, the soaring serpent of the heavenly stem divine beasts. The soaring serpent was knocked back by Ji Zhongxin's palm strike, and Ji Zhongxin's body also swayed on the spot. He said angrily, "You don't need to care about my own matters. My wife left home for dozens of years, and now that she's finally back, she still refuses to listen to my explanation. What's the point of me living anymore?" By now, Shangwan Kong had already reacted. He stared at Ji Zhongxin, and the expression in his eyes instantly became complicated. However, the determination from before had already disappeared without a trace. For someone to be willing to die to prove their resolve, this already proved many things. Furthermore, if she did not love Ji Zhongxin deeply, how could she possibly be in so much pain and not return for dozens of years? You want to die? It won't be that easy. Explain yourself first. Shangwan Kong's words were still as unyielding as before, but there was already a hint of fear in his heart. Furthermore, seeing the demonic energy gathering around her body, if Ji Zhongxin were to commit suicide again, she would definitely not be in a daze. It was also at this moment that the color of the sky changed once again. The rays of the sun seemed to have increased by several times at this moment. 2 giant dragons soared through the sky. The one on the left was emitting intense flames that were not inferior to the sun. It spread its wings, and an indescribable amount of demonic power burst forth from its body. It was the 10th grade fire dragon. 3 people stood on the fire dragon. The one standing at the front was the sovereign of fire, Yin Zhaoyong, his majesty of victory, Yin Zhaorong, his majesty of Tai, Yin Zhaorong, and the last one was Ji Dong's cheapskate eldest brother, Zhu Yin, Zhu Er. On the right was a giant dragon. Its entire body was blue and purple, and the explosive sound of thunder and lightning could be heard from the ground. It was only slightly smaller than the 10th level fire dragon, but it looked much more ferocious, especially the ring of spikes around its neck. Wasn't that the purple thunder heavenly dragon Thunder? There were 2 people sitting on Thunder's back. The one in front was naturally Fury, and behind him was a middle-aged man with only 1 arm. The others might not recognize him, but how could Ji Dong not recognize him? He was the owner of 1 breath of incense, the cannon dragon Ah Bing. Ji Dong stared at this scene with his mouth agape. They're here. They're all here. Well, what's going on? The 2 water supremes from the Magic Skills Guild were just as stunned as him. There were actually 6 supremes of the 9 crowns gathered on the Azure Grassland. It could be said that there was no second one like this in the entire 5 Elements continent. Although the 2 supremes of the Fire Supremes had yet to express their intentions, water and fire were incompatible. No matter how optimistic Shui Mingyue and Lung Fengyun were, they knew that they were definitely not here to help them. Grandfather was here. Ancestor Xian was here. Ji Dong could choose not to pay his respects. After all, he still had some estrangement with the King Equivalent's family. However, since Grandmaster and Master's wife were here, why would he hesitate? He quickly stepped forward and knelt down on both knees, paying his respects in the direction of the fire dragon in the sky. Disciple Ji Dong pays his respects to Grandmaster and Master's wife. Looking at Ji Dong, Yin Zhaoyang's eyes revealed a hint of satisfaction, but his expression was very cold. He snorted and did not speak. Yin Zhaorong said snappily, "Brat, I'll deal with you later when this is over. Quickly get up and stand aside." Ji Dong naturally understood that Yin Zhaorong was protecting him. There were 6 Supreme Being experts present, and he couldn't contend against any one of them. So, he hurriedly and respectfully agreed, then retreated. Yin Zhaorong's figure flashed and returned to the back of the flying serpent. He looked at Ji Zhongxin snappily and said, "You really don't know what's good for you. The flying serpent saved your life. It's fine if you're not grateful, but you're still clamoring. Do you think we're willing to save you? It's all because of that stinky brat, Ji Dong. You've lived for more than 100 years in vain. There's nothing that can't be explained clearly between a husband and wife. Just give in to elder sister Yin Kong and explain." Ji Zhongxin was the dignified heavenly crown, but he had no strength to refute Yin Zhaorong's scolding. He smiled bitterly and said, "Zhaorong, it's not that I don't want to explain, but she doesn't want to listen at all. It's been dozens of years, and it's not easy to see her again. If I don't take this opportunity to express my feelings, she'll turn around and leave after this is over. I've already lived for more than 100 years. Yin Zhaorong said, "She ignored you and turned around to leave. Can't you follow her? Is the face of Heavenly Dipper that important? Don't tell me that with your strength, Big Sister Yin Kong can still shake you off?" Ji Zhongxin was stunned and said, "That's right. Why didn't I think of that?" Turning his head to look at Shangwan Yin Kong, this Heavenly Dipper laughed like a child and said, "Yin Kong, you can't run away this time. In the future, wherever you go, I'll go. I must go with you. Zhaorong, thank you so much. If you need my help in the future, don't hesitate to ask." Fire Dragon and Purple Thunder Heaven Illuminating Dragon both landed. Yin Zhaorong looked at Ji Zhongxin's excited appearance and couldn't help but not know whether to laugh or cry. This was the supreme expert who was equally as famous as him. From the looks of it, he was also a henpecked man. "Brother Zhongxin, shouldn't we settle the conflict between the 2 guilds first? Yin Kong, we can be considered to have known each other for a while. Give me some face first. After this matter is settled, you and Brother Zhongxin can settle your matters." Shangwan Yin Kong's expression had already recovered a little. Although he didn't look at Ji Zhongxin, his emotions had obviously calmed down a lot. He said, "Let's do as Heavenly Dipper Shangwang said. Shui Mingwei, Lung Fengyun, didn't you guys want to determine the victor in 10 battles? Come, determine the victor in 10 battles? How is this going to determine the victor?" The place where Fire Dragon, Soaring Serpent, and Purple Thunder Heaven Illuminating Dragon landed was the side of the Demon Guild. There was no need to ask. The 2 Supremes of Fire had already expressed their attitude. 4 against 2, and any one of the 4 Supremes of Demon Guild would have the upper hand if they fought one-on-one. Shui Mingyue and Lung Fengyun's faces were no longer ugly. Their hearts had already turned completely cold. Although Yin Zhaorong and Yin Zhaorong were of the fire attribute, they were restrained by the water attribute. In the Demon Master world, this pair of brother and sister were the most difficult to provoke. Yin Zhaorong's strength was on the same level as Ji Zhongxin, or even above him. Otherwise, Ji Zhongxin wouldn't have been so polite when the brother and sister went to the Central Plains city to ask for people. Although Yin Zhaorong's strength was much weaker, at most on the same level as Lung Fengyun and Shui Mingwei, one shouldn't forget that her magical beast companion was the only heavenly stem divine beast that wasn't sealed. From how the Soaring Serpent was able to forcefully break through Ji Zhongxin's defense and block his palm strike, it could be seen that it was different from the other 10th rank magical beasts. With the arrival of this pair of Supremes, what was the point of this battle? At this moment, the vice president of the Demon Guild, Shi Luo's expression had already completely relaxed. He chuckled as he stood there with a complacent expression on his face. In the end, the effort was rewarded. 2 substandard divine weapons in exchange for an absolute victory was worth it. A magic skill guild wasn't something that could be compared to 2 substandard divine weapons. After swallowing them, the Demon Guild would become the sole power. Shangwan Yin Kong looked at the silent Shui Mingyue and Lung Fengyun and coldly snorted. "Why aren't you speaking? Are you going to fight or not?" A resolute look appeared in Shui Mingyue's eyes, as if she had already made a decision. She coldly said, You've even invited the two majesties, Yin Zhaorong and Yang Zhaorong. What else is there to fight? It's 4 against 2. Even if all of us from the Magic Skill Guild remain here, it won't be difficult. Adding on the Diamond Core, I'm afraid that not a single one of us will be able to escape. Today, our Magic Skill Guild admits defeat. However, it won't be that easy for you to swallow us up. Ji Zhongxin disdainfully snorted. A life and death struggle? I like to see if my net can break if you the fish die. The person Shui Mingyue was most afraid of was Ji Zhongxin, whose element was the counter to his. However, Ji Zhongxin just had to show off in front of his wife. The dense earth element magical power began to fluctuate violently. A battle was about to break out at any moment. The faces of the people from the Magic Skill Guild in the distance had already turned ashen. The battle at the highest level had already decided the outcome of today's battle. Wait a moment. Yin Zhaorong suddenly spoke, stopping Ji Zhongxin, who was about to make a move. He also attracted everyone's attention. We are all 9 crown demon masters. To be able to cultivate to this level, every one of us has put in tens of years, or even hundreds of years of hard work. We are also the strongest experts in the continent. There is something I must tell you. Not long ago, the City Lord of Tianji City found me and revealed some secrets of Tianji to me. Soon, our Radiant's 5 Elements continent will very likely encounter a calamity. If we still want to kill each other here, when the calamity comes, how much power will we have to resist? Ji Zhongxin frowned slightly. Brother Zhaorong, are we just going to let it go like this? Yin Zhaorong said, Isn't the Magic Skills Guild going to have 10 matches with the Magic Masters Guild? Shui Mingyu, Lung Fengyun, I know that you guys are definitely not willing to let the Magic Skills Guild merge with the Magic Master Guild. However, the challenge was originally proposed by you guys. With your status as Ji Zun experts, you guys shouldn't go back on your words, right? I'll give you guys a chance. There's no need for 10 battles. Let's just win 2 out of 3 battles. Each side will send out 3 people. We old fools won't take action. We'll just watch from a side. If one side wins, the other side will unconditionally merge with the other side's guild. Shui Mingyue said in disbelief. You mean the 4 of you innate martial artists won't make a move? Yin Zhaorong said indifferently. That's right, exactly. Do you dare to take this gamble? Lung Fengyun said coldly. Who knows what you guys are plotting? Even if we win and you go back on your words, what can we do? Yin Zhaorong said proudly. Yin Zhaorong, have never gone back on my words. If you guys win and the Magic Masters Guild isn't willing to merge with the Magic Skills Guild, us 2 siblings will fight against the Magic Masters Guild together. What do you think? The siblings, Yin Zhaorong, could be said to have the power to decide the outcome of the battle. No matter which side they helped, the other side would have a huge advantage. Ji Zhongxin frowned and said, Brother Zhaorong, Yin Zhaorong sighed and said, I'm thinking for the future of the continent. Brother Zhongxin, believe me. Chapter 238. His Holiness, Yin Zhaoyong suddenly suggested that both sides would not send out their supremes, and instead send other non-supreme level demon masters to fight for the best of 3. Without a doubt, this was a huge opportunity for the Demon Skills Guild. Everyone knew of Yin Zhaoyong's reputation. He would never go back on his words. Lung Fengyun and Shui Mingyue looked at each other. They both knew that this was their last chance. If they did not agree, they wouldn't be able to fight against the 4 Supremes joining hands. Shui Mingyue said in a clear voice, All right, we agree. Best of 3. Yin Zhaoyong looked at Hyoheim and Shangwan Yinkong. Before Ji Zhongxin could speak, Shangwan Yinkong's voice sounded, His Holiness, I believe in you. Although Ji Zhongxin was a little unwilling, he turned his head to look at Shangwan Yinkong and nodded in the end. After all, Shangwan Yinkong was the president of the Demon Skills Guild. Moreover, as long as his wife was happy, so what if he lost the guild? Yin Zhaoyong nodded and said, Since both sides have agreed, then we can each choose our own people to fight. Shui Mingyue said, We need to discuss this. Yin Zhaoyong said, Of course. Even though his current words and actions were somewhat like a noisy guest trying to usurp the host position, with his status in the Devil Master world, no one in the world would say anything about it. Ji Zhongxin and Shangwan Yinkong trusted him because they believed that he wouldn't speak without thinking. He would only make such a suggestion when he was confident. Although Shui Mingyue and Lung Fengyin also expected Yin Zhaoyang to be very confident, no matter how confident he was, everyone would send out an 8-crown demon master at most. After 3 rounds, it was hard to say who would win. This was also their last chance. While the supremes of both sides were communicating, there were 2 more people beside Jidong, Thunder Emperor Fury, and Cannon Dragon Abing. Little brother, you've been gone for 4 years without any news from us. Are you trying to kill us with anxiety? Fury grabbed Jidong's shoulder and questioned him. You've been gone for 4 years, and there's been no news from you at all. After 4 years, Fury's appearance hadn't changed much. However, his temperament seemed to have become more solemn, vaguely giving off the kind of pressure of heaven and earth thunder. Even if he didn't release his mana, he would still make people feel oppressed. Seeing Fury grab Jidong's shoulder, Jin took a step forward and was about to make a move, but was stopped by Flaming Bar, who shook his head at her. Fury glanced in the direction of raging flames and Jin. He snorted and said, "You're enjoying yourself. Do you know how anxious Grandmaster, Mistress, Teacher, and I are? Even if it's just you sending a letter back, it's fine." Jidong had a bitter smile on his face as he said, "Senior brother, it's my fault. However, you can't blame me for this. I met with an accident and coincidentally entered a state of seclusion. This seclusion lasted for 4 years. To me, 4 years passed in the blink of an eye. When I woke up, it was already more than a month ago." Fury was stunned for a moment, and then he said, "For years of closed-door cultivation? All right, let's not talk about this. Why didn't you come to the academy to look for me after you came to Central Plains City and treated Brother Cannon Dragon? You know I'm at the Heavenly STEM Academy. If Brother Cannon Dragon didn't come to ask me when he couldn't find you, I wouldn't even know you're back. I still had something to take care of, so I didn't go to the academy to look for you. Senior brother, why are you, Grandmaster, and Master's wife all here?" Cannon Dragon Abing said, "Little shitty, you healed me, so you're my savior. But you left without saying a word. That's not right. How can your senior brother endure this? Fury, this brat. In order to find you, he almost searched the entire Central Plains City. After that, he got the news from the Magician Guild, knowing that you will come to participate in the battle between the 2 big guilds in a month's time, so he immediately went to find the 2 supreme honorables. Do you think we came here today for the 2 big guilds? It's all for you." Jidong couldn't speak anymore. His throat was choked. Looking at Fury, a layer of mist appeared at the bottom of his eyes. Fury's face was still covered in dust. It could be seen how he spent the past month. The next battle between the holy and evil was getting closer and closer. As the leader of the Radiant 5 Elements continent, Jidong should have been training hard. But for Jidong, he wasted a month and even alarmed his grandmaster and mistress to look for him personally. This was the first time Jidong felt the warmth of a family. Seeing Jidong choking on his sobs, Fury's voice softened a little. He patted Jidong's shoulder and said, all right. A man should shed blood, but not tears. Wipe your eyes dry. Don't let others see you like this. Senior brother, I was wrong." Jidong lowered his head silently. Fury hugged Jidong's shoulder and said, "No one expected you to go into seclusion for 4 years. This isn't entirely your fault. After all, in your mind, we've only been separated for a few months, not a few years. All right, let's talk about it when we get back. Grandmaster and Mistress won't really blame you." At this moment, the negotiation between the 6 Supremes had ended. Shui Mingyue and Lung Fengyin returned to the Magician Guild to choose their magician. Ji Zhangxin, Shangguan Yinkong, Yin Zhaoyang, and Yin Zhaorong also returned. Ji Zhangxin asked Yin Zhaoyang doubtfully, "Brother Zhaoyang, we clearly have the absolute advantage. Why are you doing this? Although Tianji has some ability to predict the future, we can't trust him completely. Shui Mingyue and Lung Fengyin have always been secretly opposing you. Why are you helping them?" Yin Zhaoyang said, "Tianji's words are not a joke. When he saw me, his life was already at its end. No matter what, on the other side of the Holy Evil Island, there is our common enemy, the Dark 5 Elements continent. We'd rather believe it than not. Moreover, If the Magician Guild can swallow up the Magician Guild and recruit these two 9-crown magicians, wouldn't it greatly increase the strength of the Magician Guild? If we combine all our strength, even if something really goes wrong, we'll be able to deal with it better. Ji Zhangxin nodded silently and said, "You're thinking far ahead. However, there are a few good candidates in the Magician Guild. On our side, except for Shi Luo, the other 8-crown magicians are still a bit lacking. You're being too hasty with this 2 out of 3 round." Yin Xiaoyang smiled and said, "Since I proposed this method of competition, I'll naturally help you solve the problem. Otherwise, I won't be helping you, but tearing you down. Fury, Ji Dong, come here." "Yes, Grandmaster." Ji Dong and Fury strode forward and arrived in front of the 4 supreme crowns. Shangguan Yinkong had been avoiding looking at Ji Zhangxin and asked Yin Xiaoyang, "Your Majesty, I know Fury. He's a good kid. He's already led the Heavenly STEM Academy's kids to victory in the Holy Evil battlefield many times. Who is this kid? Is he also Zhurong's disciple?" Yin Xiaoyang smiled and said, "Not only Zhurong's disciple, but he also has a close relationship with you. Ji Dong, why aren't you greeting him?" Ji Dong hurried forward and respectfully saluted Shangguan Yinkong, saying, "Great-grandson Ji Dong pays his respects to great-grandmother." "Wait a moment." Shangguan Yinkong shouted, startling Ji Dong. However, he wasn't afraid. With Yin Xiaoyang and Ji Dong here, no one here could hurt him. Shangguan Yinkong looked at Ji Zhangxin coldly and said, "Surname Ji. You still say it's a misunderstanding? You even have a descendant. This youngster is His Majesty's disciple, so he's naturally a fire element magician. If I remember correctly, that slut was also a fire element magician. What else do you have to explain?" Ji Zhangxin smiled bitterly and said, "Yinkong, can't you calm down a bit? You're right, Ji Dong is indeed a fire devil master, but this has nothing to do with me. Your great-grandson found a fire devil master as his wife, and that's how they had Ji Dong. The process is very complicated. I'll let Yunsheng explain it to you later. What I can tell you is that although I made a mistake that time, I was drugged and I couldn't control myself at all. Moreover, I only have you as my wife. Our son has already passed away, and only Yunsheng's bloodline has been passed down. If I had other women, would our prince equivalent's bloodline be so thin after so many years?" Shangguan Yinkong looked at Hyoheim and Yunsheng doubtfully and said, "Is that so, Yunsheng?" Ji Yunsheng hurriedly nodded and said, "That's right, Grandma. Our bloodline has only had 2 children in Ji Dong's generation. One is Ji Dong, and the other is Ji Yesheng." Yin Xiaoyang said, "Let's talk about family matters later. Fury, Ji Dong, you will represent the Magician Guild in the battle later." "Fury, I won't say anything. Ji Dong, you must win this battle. I heard what you said to your senior brother. Since you've been in seclusion for 4 years, let me see the results of your 4 years. Do you have a mount?" Ji Dong nodded and said, "I do." "Grandmaster, don't worry. I will definitely return victorious." Back when he faced the Annihilation Legion, Ji Dong had the confidence to defeat an 8-crown magician by relying on the Everlasting Formation. Moreover, he now had the help of the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon, Mao Tai, and Wu Yangya. He came to the battle today because he wanted to test out the power of the Flaming Bar dual swords he had just obtained yesterday. Shangguan Yinkong was shocked and said, "Your Holiness Shangguan, did you make a mistake? How old are they to let these 2 children fight?" Yin Xiaoyang smiled and said, "Age does not determine one's ambition. Your Holiness Daji, please believe me. I will not joke around with the lives of my disciples." Shangguan Yinkong said, "Forget about Fury. I know that child's strength has always been good. He is outstanding even among the geniuses of the Heavenly STEM Academy. But what about Ji Dong? Looking at him, it's already not bad if he's 20 years old. Even if he started cultivating in his mother's womb, it's already very impressive for him to reach the 50th level. Their opponent will definitely be an 8-crown magician." Yin Chuyang and Hyoheim said, "Tell your great-grandmother, what level of magician are you?" Ji Dong said, "Great-grandmother, I am an ultimate dual fire magician. My magic power is at the 61st level. Please rest assured, an 8-crown magician is not a problem." The small words ultimate dual fire magician were absolutely shocking. When the words 61st level came out, even Yin Xiaoyang and Yin Zhaorong couldn't help but reveal a smile on their faces. Not to mention anything else, to reach the 12th level in 4 years, Jidong was a dual-element cultivator. This speed was definitely the speed of a genius. It must be known that in these 4 years, Fury's magic power had only increased by 4 levels, and he had just reached the 78th level. Although it was much more difficult to increase the level of a 7-crown magician, the cultivation speed after the 5-crown magicians was not that fast, especially when Jidong had broken through the barrier of the 6-crown magicians. Shangguan Yinkong turned to look at Hyoheim and Ji Zhongxin in shock, only to find that Ji Zhongxin's expression was the same as usual. Obviously, he already knew. She might not believe Yin Xiaoyang, but Ji Zhongxin was a man she hated but also loved. How could she not believe in this kind of thing? Then who is the third candidate? Shangguan Yinkong asked. Yin Xiaoyang smiled and said indifferently, "There is no need for a third candidate. The 2 of them are enough." Although his words were very simple and calm, the confidence contained in them was filled with an unquestionable aura. This was an absolute certainty. Jidong and Fury looked at each other. Their backs were perfectly straight. Facing the upcoming battle, the 2 brothers were not nervous at all, as if this was just a normal thing. Yin Xiaoyang said to them, "The magicians of the Magic Skill Guild have their own unique research on magic skills. The 2 of you must treat this battle as a training for the Holy Evil Island. Fury, you go first. Jidong, you go second." "Yes," the 2 brothers replied respectfully. The candidates on this side had been selected. Shangguan Yinkong wanted to say something, but was stopped by Ji Zhongxin. Ji Zhongxin said to Shangguan Yinkong through voice transmission, "There is no problem with Brother Chuyang's arrangement. Jidong will definitely take over my position in the clan in the future. He might even surpass us and reach another level. Just wait and see. He will definitely give you a surprise later." Shangguan Yinkong glanced at Ji Zhongxin and said through voice transmission, "What you said just now is true? You were really drugged back then?" Ji Zhongxin's expression immediately turned gloomy. He said, "Yinkong, at that time, someone deliberately wanted to destroy our relationship as husband and wife. After I woke up from the drug, I directly killed that woman. After investigating for several years, I finally found the culprit who framed me." "Who was it?" A cold light flashed in Shangguan Yinkong's eyes. Blue veins popped out on Ji Zhongxin's forehead. He clenched his fists and said, "It was the royal family. Do you remember? Before the incident, I discussed it with you. The existence of our prince equivalent's bloodline is too special in the empire. It will definitely arouse the jealousy of the country. We plan to return the diamond core to the royal family. However, before I could hand over the power in my hands, the royal family instead made a false accusation. Therefore, the diamond core is still in our hands." Chapter 239. Shangguan Yinkong's expression changed. "The royal family? It's actually the royal family? You've done so much for the royal family, yet they've come to destroy our relationship." Ji Zhongxin gazed at his wife affectionately and said, "Yinkong, no matter what, my body has already betrayed me. I've let you down. The misunderstanding has already passed for several decades. No matter how much you blame me, this time, I will definitely not let you leave my side. Either you kill me, or I will continue to follow you. You should know what kind of person I am. We've been husband and wife for hundreds of years. Have I ever lied to you? Yinkong, I don't dare to ask for your forgiveness. I know you have hatred and anger in your heart. If you want revenge, then kill me. Other than my love for you, I have no other worries in my heart. You can do whatever you want to me." Looking at Ji Zhongxin in a daze, Shangguan Yinkong suddenly felt great hatred. She hated the Central Plains Empire's royal family. She hated them for being cunning and despicable, for framing her husband, causing them to be separated for several decades, and for blaming her husband wrongly for several decades. She also hated herself for being too stubborn, for not giving her husband any chance to explain himself. Clearly, the royal family had made use of this point, which was why they dared to frame Ji Zhongxin. Looking at her husband's head full of white hair, looking at his affectionate gaze, and recalling the scene of him killing himself with a face full of despair, Shangguan Yinkong's body trembled. Two streams of tears flowed down her cheeks. There was no longer a trace of hatred or coldness in her eyes, only regret and sorrow. Several decades. Even though they were sovereign experts, their lifespans were much longer than ordinary people. How many decades could they have in their lifetime? She had endured the torment in her heart for several decades. Wasn't her husband the same? Ji Zhongxin leaped up and landed on the head of the earthly emperor dragon. The two of them looked at each other at close range. Shangguan Yinkong could no longer control her emotions. The 100-year-old old man actually threw himself into Ji Zhongxin's embrace and burst into tears. His cries were eye-catching. The magicians of the Magicians Guild were speechless. This president hadn't returned for several decades, and the moment he returned, he was completely immersed in the world of love. The matter in front of him hadn't even been resolved yet. At this moment, the Magic Skills Guild had already chosen their representative. From afar, Lung Fengyun and Shui Mingwen naturally saw Shangguan Yinkong throw herself into Ji Zhongxin's embrace. The barrier between the two Earth attribute sovereigns had been broken. To them, this wasn't a good thing. The first to come out from the Magic Skills Guild was the guild's vice guildmaster, Wofu. He was dressed in black and had a figure similar to Shui Mingyu. Fury let out a long roar, and with a thunderous roar, the purple Thunder Heaven Dragon had already soared into the sky. Fury's body rose up, and he directly landed on the purple Thunder Heaven Dragon's back. A brand new dragon saddle instantly allowed him to become one with the purple Thunder Heaven Dragon. A bluish-purple full-body armor covered his body, fully displaying the demeanor of the Thunder Emperor. Ji Dong focused his eyes on the battle in front of him. What he lacked the most was actual combat experience. As his strength continued to increase, the requirement for this aspect became higher and higher. Today was a great opportunity for him to increase his actual combat ability. What made him feel strange was that Fury didn't release his Hell of Thunder Divine Axe. There was only an 8-meter-long giant axe in his hand. This axe was similar to the Thunder Battle Axe he used in the past, and the armor on his body had obviously been modified. On the Magic Skills Guild side, the 8-crown Ninth Water Heavenly Lord Wofu snorted coldly. With a wave of his right hand, a staff appeared. It wasn't a long weapon and was only 1 meter long. It was completely black, and there was a giant black gem the size of a human head embedded at the head of the staff. The moment this staff appeared, a strong wave of Ninth Water element rose around Wofu. The water element in the air was so dense that layers of waves could be seen. Yin Zhao melted into Yin Zhaoyang's side and said, "The Magic Skills Guild is really going all out this time. This is Shui Mingyue's weapon, right? If I remember correctly, it should be called the Sky Water God Staff. Among the substandard artifacts, it can be considered a high-grade artifact. What a pity, what a pity." Yin Zhaoyang didn't say anything and just watched quietly. From his face, it was hard to see any emotional fluctuations, but as long as he was there, he would give people a feeling that everything was under his control. Shui Mingyue and Lung Fengyun also frowned slightly, because they didn't expect that the Magic Skills Guild would send out Fury first. They were very clear about the situation in the Heavenly STEM Academy, and they also knew that in the last battle between the holy and evil, Fury had obtained a divine artifact, and his magic power had evolved into extreme yang lightning. Originally, Shui Mingyue gave her staff to Wofu, thinking that this battle would be a sure win. But now that Wofu was facing Fury, it was hard to predict the outcome of this battle. Although Fury wasn't an 8-crown magic master, his ultimate magic power, divine artifact, and the rank 9 Purple Thunder Heavenly Dragon as a mount. Even if Wofu was an experienced 8-crown Heavenly Lord magic master, he absolutely didn't have the confidence to win. Wofu waved the Tianshui divine staff in his hand. He didn't wear any armor, but a black robe with flowing water light appeared on his body. The robe covered his body, and immediately the water aura on his body became even thicker. Whether it was the staff in his hand or the clothes on his body, they were all completely amplified by magic power, and he had no intention of defending himself. At the same time, a black light split in front of Wofu. The light flickered, and a huge magic beast had already walked out. It wasn't a dragon, but a white magic beast. It spread its wings and soared into the sky. In the next moment, Wofu had already landed on its back. From the aura of this white magic beast, it was slightly inferior to the purple thunder heavenly dragon, but it was extremely compatible with Wofu. Thick water waves flowed, layer by layer. This magic beast looked like a seagull, but it was much bigger than an ordinary seagull. When it spread its wings, it had a wingspan of more than 10 meters. Although it wasn't as huge as a dragon, it was obviously much more agile. It was clearly a water magic beast that excelled in speed. A Class 9 magical beast that lives in both water and air, Whitewater Divine Seagull, Yin Zhaorong, said subconsciously. Jidong also knew about the Whitewater Divine Seagull. It didn't have the talent of dragons, so it was impossible for it to evolve into a Class 10 magical beast. However, it was definitely a different kind of existence among Class 9 magical beasts. As a water magic beast, it excelled in speed. It could be said to be one of the fastest flying magical beasts. Furthermore, it was adept at flying in arcs, so it was extremely fast. In an aerial battle, it could even escape unscathed when facing a Class 10 dragon. It could be said to be an existence that was second only to frost dragons and frost dragons among water magic beasts. Seeing the Whitewater Divine Seagull, Jidong's first reaction was that his senior was probably going to win. From the opponent's magical weapons, equipment, and magical beast mount, it was obvious that he planned to fight attack with attack and then use speed to win. However, was it really that easy to use speed in front of the Thunder Emperor? No matter how fast the Whitewater Divine Seagull was, could it be faster than lightning? Lightning traveled at the speed of light. A faint smile had already appeared on Jidong's face. After this battle, it would be his turn. He had already thought it through. In today's battle, he would not use the demonic power of the 6 dragons and 6 snakes stored in his yin-yang crown. He would use his true strength to fight against the opponent's demon master, and he had to win. Flaming Bar and Jean watched Jidong from behind. For some reason, when she saw Jidong, Flaming Bar's emotions fluctuated greatly. She hoped that Jidong would have friends and family, so that he would not be lonely. She also hoped that he would continue on this year's journey with her and accompany her well. Flaming Bar couldn't predict the future, but she had a feeling that something would definitely happen in the holy evil battlefield in a year's time, something that even she couldn't imagine. In midair, facing Wofer, Fury held the battle axe in his hand horizontally and shouted, "Please!" His voice itself was like a thunderbolt, and dense yang lightning fluctuations were released in an instant. Both his and the purple thunder heavenly dragon's bodies turned crystal clear purple almost at the same time. It was the extreme yang lightning elemental body. What was a lightning element attack? The most appropriate way to describe it was thunderous thunder. Wolfer's expression was cold. He pointed the staff in his hand at Fury and said, "Please." In the sky, following the confrontation between the two of them, the air suddenly underwent a drastic change. On Fury's side, the sky had already turned completely purple, while on Wofer's side, dark clouds appeared once again, and the sky also darkened. Without a doubt, both of them had released their demon domains. It was very normal for Wofer to release his demon domain. He was a level 88 Ninth Water Devil Master, and the 8 crowns and 4 stars on his head showed his strength. On the other hand, the purple extreme Yang Thunder Sun crown on Fury's head only had 7 crowns and 2.5 stars. Yet, he had also released his demon domain. This was somewhat unbelievable. There were 6 Supreme Being experts present, and they could all feel that Fury's demon domain was not released with the help of the Purple Thunder Heavenly Dragon's power, but completely his own power. Wofer slapped the Sky Water God staff in his hand forward. He didn't care that he was an elder and took the initiative to attack. In such a battle, it was extremely important to take the initiative. Both sides had a huge amount of magic power. Attacking would definitely save more magic power than defending. No one would be willing to be the defensive party. The Whitewater Divine Gull let out a soft cry, and his body suddenly accelerated like lightning. He didn't rush towards Fury, but instead soared into the sky. At the same time, In the sky near Wofer, thousands of black lights had already condensed in the next moment. He pointed the sky water god staff in his hand, and the thousands of black lights had already shot straight towards Fury and the purple thunder heavenly dragon. Fury snorted coldly and waved the battle axe in his hand. An intense purple light burst out from him and the purple thunder heavenly dragon almost at the same time. A thick layer of lightning net instantly spread out in the sky, completely protecting him and the purple thunder heavenly dragon. At the same time, he slowly raised the battle axe in his hand above his head, and intense purple lightning condensed. At this moment, the thousands of black lights that were rapidly flying forward suddenly stopped in midair. They didn't crash into the lightning net, but instead changed direction after stopping in midair. They scattered and drew arcs in the air. The originally overwhelming black lights actually turned into a huge black halo in midair. It swept past the outer ring of the lightning net that Fury had released, and then rushed towards Fury's body. At the same time, thousands of black lights flew out from Wofer's side. It was a wave after wave of attacks, and there was almost no gap between the attacks. Seeing this scene, the first feeling that Ji Dong felt was shock. The attack that Wofer released could no longer be described as a simple skill. To be able to control such a huge amount of mana in such a large area, his control had reached an appalling level. Perhaps it was because he had the assistance of the Sky Water God staff in his hand, but even so, such control was still shocking. Thousands of black lights seemed to come alive in midair. They dodged the lightning net and directly attacked Fury's body. The first result was that Fury's magic skill that was accumulating power was forcibly interrupted, forcing him to release another skill to defend against the attack. However, Fury was not fighting alone. The purple thunder dazzling dragon roared, and surging purple light burst out in an instant, forming a huge omnidirectional purple light shield that protected Fury and himself. Fury himself seemed to have not seen the black lights outside, and the battle axe in his hand was still condensing mana. A sinister smile appeared at the corner of Wofer's mouth, and the Sky Water God staff in his hand circled and pointed in the air. The black lights that were originally pouncing towards Fury actually changed direction again. Not only did they not collide with the light shield that the purple thunder dazzling dragon had launched, but they did not even get close to it. In an instant, they flew back and gathered with the second round of black lights that flew up. These two black lights were extremely condensed ninth water mana. When they collided and condensed in the air, a strange scene appeared. Thousands of black lights actually formed a straight line in the air, and they did not launch a direct attack. Instead, they overlapped and compressed one after another, just like how the Annihilation Legion had compressed their mana when they had attacked Ji Dong. The black lights became darker and darker as they were compressed. If it was said that it was pitch black at the beginning, then the black color gradually changed. When the thousands of black lights were compressed to a certain extent, the black color actually gradually faded, and all the black lights condensed into a point. In the end, it actually became colorless and transparent, and one could only vaguely see the extremely compressed ninth water mana distorting the sunlight under the illumination of the sun. Even Yin Zhaoyang and the others could not help but frown slightly when they saw this kind of control. They knew that they could not do this when they were at the level of the 8 champions. Ji Dong could not help but murmur, a single target, single element, multi-compression combination skill, completely completed by a single person. This is too terrifying. Even with the mental strength that he had now enhanced by the soul fire, he knew that he could not do this. This kind of control had already exceeded the limits of the control of a mage in his memory. Chapter 240. The Flaming Bar's voice sounded in Ji Dong's soul. This magic master has completely given up on advancing to 9 crowns. He stimulated his brain with mana and increased his spiritual power to a certain level, which allowed him to have such control. In addition to not being able to advance to 9 crowns, he can't engage in any close combat. His body is so fragile that it's not even comparable to a 6 crowns magic master. By giving up like this, he's pursuing a kind of extreme control. If he met you, he'd be dead by now. The flying serpent flash, plus your body's defense, the explosive power of the two monarch skills, and the instantaneous close-range attack power of the god-slaying strike are enough to kill him instantly. The flaming bar's explanation could be said to be concise. Jidong was not stupid and immediately understood. Using mana to stimulate the soul and increase one's spiritual power was easy to say, but it definitely had to be carried out through some secret methods. The human brain was the most mysterious and the most fragile. If one was not careful, the price to pay would be his life. At the very least, he would become an idiot. The Magic Skills Guild was indeed unique to be able to cultivate such a magic master. The mana that had been compressed to colorless and transparent in the air finally condensed into a point. A distorted light wave flashed in the air and flew towards Fury again. At this time, the extreme Yang Thunder mana condensed on Fury's battle axe had also been completed. The battle axe was raised high above his head, and in the sound of the thunderclap, terrifying mana bloomed instantly. A huge purple crystal thunderball with a diameter of more than 3 meters broke through the air and flew straight in Wofer's direction. Their accumulated attacks had been completed. There was no doubt that on the surface, Wofer's control of mana far exceeded Fury's. The next thing to see was the defensive power of both sides. Whoever could block the opponent's attack more easily would have the absolute upper hand. Fury was wearing full body armor, and his face was covered by a helmet. No one could see his expression at this time. At the same time he released the Thunderball, the transparent ninth water crystal had already arrived in front of him. Colorless and transparent. What did this mean? It represented the extreme ninth water. That's right, Wofer himself was not an owner of extreme mana. However, he used his powerful control of mana to forcibly compress the released mana into a point. Not only did it have an extremely terrifying, explosive ninth water mana, but it had also reached the level of extreme mana. To be able to become the vice president of the Magic Skills Guild, Wofer's strength was extraordinary. Moreover, the huge gem at the head of the divine water staff in his hand was emitting dazzling light. Hello felt a chill down his spine as he watched from below. He knew that if it were him, even if he could block Wofer's attack, he would definitely be completely suppressed. Wofer's strength had already exceeded his imagination. It was obvious that the Magic Skill Guild had been preparing for today's competition for a long time. If it weren't for the sudden appearance of the 4 Supreme Masters, the Magic Skill Guild would definitely be doomed in today's battle. After both sides released their attacks, they didn't stop. At the same time, they launched their next move. On Wofer's side, his Whitewater Divine Gull moved quickly. Its huge body displayed astonishing agility. It didn't fly rapidly to avoid the Thunderball that was flying towards it. Instead, it moved quickly and irregularly in the air, up and down, giving off an unfathomable feeling. On Fury's side, it was the exact opposite. The purple thunder heavenly dragon spread its wings in the air and floated there motionlessly. It even retracted the omnidirectional defense that was previously protecting its body. At this moment, Fury and his purple thunder heavenly dragon gave off the feeling that they were one with one. A loud shout came from Fury's mouth. Immediately after, a huge round totem appeared behind him. In the totem, the image of the purple thunder heavenly dragon spread its wings and roared. It could be clearly seen that the purple color around Fury's body suddenly became denser, as if there were bolts of lightning being injected into his body. This is... Jidong's heart that was hanging in the air finally calmed down. Others might not recognize what this round totem was, but how could he not recognize it? It was the condensation formation of the 5 elements formation. Senior brother didn't waste 4 years. Back then, the 5 elements formation that Jidong learned in the underground palace was of the fire element. There was no 5 elements formation of the lightning element there, so Jidong imparted all his fire element formation to Fury. After 4 years, it was obvious that Fury had a deep understanding of the 5 elements formation and had converted it into his own ability. The Thunder Emperor was terrifying to begin with. He possessed the ultimate Yang Thunder and the Hell Thunder Divine Axe. Coupled with the 5 elements formation, Jidong had reason to believe that with his senior brother's strength, he would have a chance to escape unscathed even if he were to face a supreme powerhouse. The upper body of the purple thunder heavenly dragon was suddenly raised, and the yang thunder condensation formation instantly erupted with a terrifying concentration of mana. This wasn't a technique, but a complete difference in the understanding of mana. Fury held the huge battle axe in his hands with both hands and arched his entire body backward. He became one with the dragon and swung the axe down with all his might. He didn't use any fancy moves. He chose to face it head-on. In the sky, the Thunder Emperor and his purple thunder heavenly dragon seemed to have disappeared. All that was left was a purple thunderbolt. Amidst the loud bang, the purple thunderbolt had already bombarded the thousands of compressed 9 crystal lights. An indescribably terrifying mana suddenly erupted with Fury's body as the center. One could clearly see a circle of purplish-black mana instantly spreading in midair. Be it Fury's demon domain or Wofo's demon domain, both were instantly wiped out. The huge body of the purple thunder heavenly dragon was also sent flying by this huge force. They tumbled in the air, and layers of purple aura continuously erupted from their bodies. Ultimately, Fury's axe was still no match for the 9 magical power that was under extreme control. In this collision, he was already at a disadvantage. The purple thunder heavenly dragon was sent flying for almost 1,000 meters before it could barely stabilize its body. The battle axe in Fury's hand had already disappeared. The metal fragments in the air scattered in all directions. It was obvious that they had been shattered by the light that was condensed to an extreme level. Seeing this scene, Shui Mingyue's face couldn't help but reveal a proud expression. No one knew Wofo's strength better than him. Even if it was a sovereign expert like him, it wasn't like Wofo didn't have the ability to retaliate when he sparred with Wofo. Based on his almost obsessive control, Shui Mingyue would need a certain amount of time and caution to subdue him. The crystal light that had been compressed thousands of times seemed simple, but in reality, it was already extremely close to the level of a single-target ultimate killing technique. Shui Mingyue was sure that Fury was already injured, and it was very likely that he had suffered a serious injury. So what if he was a genius student of the Heavenly STEM Academy? So what if he was an extreme Yang Lightning? In terms of absolute control over techniques, who could compare to my Magic Skills Guild? Compared to Shui Mingyue's pride, the Magic Masters of the Magic Masters Guild couldn't help but frown. Even Shangwan Yinkong and Ji Zhangxin were the same. Only the siblings Yin Zhaoyang and Yang Zhaoyang's expressions didn't change, as if the battle in the sky had nothing to do with them. Fury had relied on brute force to neutralize his opponent's attack. On the other side, FOFO was also displaying his incomparably powerful dodging ability to the crowd. The white water divine gull made a dodging movement in midair that caused everyone to be stunned. Fury's lightning ball had obviously locked on a FOFO. As a technique, the lightning ball's absolute speed was clearly above that of the white water divine gull, a magical beast that specialized in speed. Although it wasn't a direct attack of lightning, the energy contained within the lightning ball was clearly more terrifying. However, every time the lightning ball approached the white water divine gull under the guidance of its target, the white water divine gull would suddenly change directions from an unexpected angle just as it was about to unleash its power. The lightning ball would also temporarily lose its target and stagnate in the air. It was this simple stagnation that caused it to be unable to catch up to the white water divine gull. It could only continuously follow behind the white water divine gull. At first, the white water divine gull was flying into the distance, but for some reason, after a few turns, it circled back. Behind it, there was an electric ball chasing after it, but Wofer, who was unscathed, once again rushed towards Fury's direction. As long as he defeated Fury, the lightning ball behind him would collapse on its own. Before that, FOFO was completely confident that the lightning ball wouldn't be able to catch up to him. Fury, I heard that you can release 7 lightning dragons at the same time. Why don't you release them? I'd like to see if your 7 lightning dragons can catch up to me. FOFO's voice echoed in the air. He was obviously trying to provoke Fury, But the dodging ability he displayed after merging with the white water divine gull was indeed amazing. In a battle between two powerhouses, one was blasted away by the opponent's skill and was likely injured, while the other did not even collide with the opponent's skill. Moreover, it seemed that while he was dodging, it wouldn't affect his next attack at all. The difference between the two was obvious. Everyone below could feel that Fury had been completely suppressed by Wofer. I have to admit that the Magic Skills Guild's control of mana has indeed exceeded my expectations. It has also allowed me to understand a lot of things. However, Vice President FO, you seem to be a little too happy. Don't think that you've won, Fury replied calmly from the back of the purple Thunderheaven Dragon. Hearing his voice, FO was already taken aback. This was because he was surprised to find that Fury's voice was still full of energy. It didn't seem like he was injured at all. A trace of uneasiness spread in his heart, and Fury's next words caused his expression to change drastically. You're not the only one who can control it. This was what Fury said. At the same time that he said this, the ball of lightning chasing behind FO suddenly stopped. Immediately after, tens of thousands of lightning bolts instantly erupted. The target wasn't concentrated, but it covered an area with a diameter of several hundred square meters. No matter how strong the white water divine gull's dodging ability was, it was impossible to dodge this kind of wide area attack. Furthermore, the attack was coming from behind. Who would have thought that the huge ball of lightning chasing behind FO wasn't a single target attack at all, but a wide area attack? Furthermore, it was a wide area attack that could be targeted at any time. It was also launched at the moment when FO was the most relaxed. If FO's control of mana far exceeded Fury's, then Fury's psychological control wasn't something Wofu could compare to. This Thunder Emperor, who had participated in the Holy and Evil battle 3 times and led the young soul masters of the 5 Elements continent to the final victory, had rich combat experience. His initial defense was merely a test of his opponent, and it was only now that Fury's attack could be considered to have truly begun. In the face of this sudden attack, Wofu roared angrily. He no longer cared about attacking Fury. He waved the Tianshui Divine Scepter in his hand, and the huge gemstone at the head of the scepter became completely transparent. Thousands of black rays continuously surged out of his body and collided with the lightning behind him. With his powerful mental strength, the black rays intercepted almost every lightning attack. The air was filled with the 2 special gases produced by the collision of water and lightning. Seeing this, the thoughts that had appeared in Ji Dong's mind surged again. His eyes flickered and no longer knew what he was thinking. The purple thunder heavenly dragon roared angrily at the sky. Fury pointed his right hand at the sky, and the demon masters below only felt the sky shake violently, as if it was about to collapse. Following that, a sparkling and translucent purple light shot out from between Fury's eyebrows. With the appearance of this purple light, the sun lightning crown above his head shone brightly, and deafening dragon roars erupted continuously. Almost at the same time, a total of 14 lightning dragons instantly erupted from Fury's body. The 14 lightning dragons dispersed in the air and flew in different directions, covering the sky and covering the sun. When the attack of the ball of lightning behind FO finally disappeared, he was shocked to discover that there were already figures of lightning dragons surrounding him and the white water divine gull. Under Fury's powerful control, the 14 lightning dragons actually formed a spherical encirclement and forcefully enveloped the vice president of the Magic Skills Guild. Who told you that I only have 7 lightning dragons? Fury's disdainful voice reverberated in the air. At this moment, the entire sky had turned completely purple, the purple of pure lightning. Even the 6 Supreme Being powerhouses below felt waves of numbness on their skin. The 14 lightning dragons were already enough to contend against a Supreme Being powerhouse. If all their demonic powers were to erupt, it would be comparable to the might of a mid-level sure-kill technique. Furthermore, Fury, who was sitting on the back of the purple thunder heavenly dragon, looked completely fine, as if he hadn't used much of his demonic powers at all. Ji Zhangxin and Shangwan Yinkong's eyes were filled with disbelief. The couple looked at each other in dismay. It was only at this moment that they truly realized that the strength of this young man, who had never tasted defeat in the holy evil battlefield, had actually reached such a terrifying level. Could it be that he had been hiding his strength all along, and had long since reached the level of a supreme being? Chapter 241. No one was clearer than Ji Dong about the origin of Fury's 14 Thunder Dragons. At this moment, the smile on his face could not help but widen. In 4 years, Fury's understanding of the 5 elements formation was obviously not limited to the condensation of the formation. He had also mastered the sustaining formation that could enhance his mana by several times. Although Fury was only a pure Yang Thunder and could not sustain Yin and Yang mana at the same time like him, these 7 Thunder Dragons were enough to instantly double his mana. Even a supremacy powerhouse would feel pressured under such pressure, let alone Wofo, who had just resisted Fury's attack with all his might. The purple thunder heavenly dragon flew leisurely in Wofo's direction. Fury's voice echoed in the air. "Vice President Wofo, do you want to continue?" Without using the Thunder Divine Axe, Fury still completely suppressed Wofo. It was fine if he did not move, but if he moved, he would definitely win. Wofo's control of mana was indeed amazing. However, in the face of the huge mana released by Fury, which he could not contend against, what else could he do? Wofo's expression was the same as that of the 2 Water Supreme Being expert below. His face was ashen, and the hand that was holding the Tinshui staff was even trembling slightly. He could not believe that he had been defeated so miserably, and his opponent was only a 7-crown demon master. He had pursued ultimate control for so many years. Was he really defeated just like that? He did not want to believe it. He really did not want to believe it. However, the attribute suppression emitted by the 14 Thunder Dragons condensed from extreme Yang Thunder had already caused the mana in his body to become dimmer and dimmer. He no longer had any chance to fight back. Even if he died, he would at most perish together with these Thunder Dragons. He would not be able to touch Fury's edge at all. "I lost." Wofo said these 3 words through gritted teeth. When these 3 words came out of his mouth, he seemed to have aged 10 years. His body swayed on the Whitewater Divine Gull's back. With a wah sound, he spat out a mouthful of blood, and there was no trace of human color on his face. The 14 Thunder Dragons quietly dispersed. If one paid close attention, they would discover that 7 of them directly returned to the sun crown on Fury's head. In terms of the application of the sustaining formation, Fury was no longer inferior to Ji Dong. After all, Ji Dong had wasted 4 years and had not had the time to fully understand the mystery of the 5-element formation. The purple thunder heavenly dragon descended from the sky amidst the cheers of the Demon Master Guild. Fury sat on the dragon's back and bowed towards the 4 supreme masters on this side. He said, "Disciple, fortunately, I did not disappoint you." Yin Xiaoyang's expression did not change as he nodded. Only then did Fury ride on the purple thunder dragon to the side. Ji Zhangxin laughed heartily and said, "Brother Xiaoyang, I really admire you. You actually cultivated such a good grand disciple. Such an overwhelming victory. Why are you still not satisfied?" "Unfortunately, I've been looking for Yin Kong all these years. Looks like I should take a disciple as well." Yin Xiaoyang smiled and said, "I would be even more satisfied if he didn't use 14 Thunder Dragons in the end." Ji Zhangxin didn't quite understand Yin Xiaoyang's words. Ji Dong and Fury looked at each other. They both knew that their Grandmaster was saying that Fury shouldn't have been able to defeat his opponent even with the life-sustaining matrix. Although Fury's magic power wasn't as strong as his opponent's, he had the ultimate magic power. Of course, Peifo also had level 18 strength. Coupled with his extreme controllability, if Fury did not use the mana accumulated by the life-sustaining matrix, he would not be able to defeat him in a short time. Fury rubbed his hands together in shame. He lowered his head and said to Ji Dong, "Junior brother, I've embarrassed myself. It's all up to you now?" Ji Dong chuckled and said, "Senior brother, maybe I'll also need to use the perpetuation matrix." The magicians of the Magic Arts Guild really have an extraordinary understanding of skills. I'm also very inspired. At this time, Yin Jiayong looked over and said, Ji Dong, come here. Ji Dong quickly walked forward and said respectfully, Grandmaster. Yin Jiayong nodded at him and said, Don't force yourself. Also, you don't have the restrictions of your senior brother. Do your best, understand? Yes, Ji Dong replied. Yin Jiayong's gaze swept past Ji Dong and looked behind him. When his gaze landed on the flaming bar in Ajin, he couldn't help but show some doubt. The flaming bar nodded at Yin Jiayong and didn't say anything. Ajin was still so cold. Other than the flaming bar, she wouldn't say anything to anyone. On the other side, Shui Mingwei and Lung Fingyun's expressions were already extremely ugly. Shui Mingwei took the Tianshui divine staff from Wofu and looked at the pale Wofu. She sighed and said, All right, this can't be blamed on you. It's fury that kid is too strong. It seems that the future belongs to these young people. If I remember correctly, Fury shouldn't be 35 years old yet. In my opinion, in less than 20 years, he can fight for the 9 crowns. Lung Fengyun said, Mingwei, we can't afford to lose anymore. We must win the second round, and we must win beautifully. Shui Mingwei nodded and said, Yin Jiayong proposed to win 2 out of 3 battles. He is obviously very confident. He has at least 2 trump cards in his hands. Fury is one of them. I don't know what the other trump card is, but if it's his disciple or disciple's disciple, then it must be a fire-type magician. I reckon that he will save the second trump card for the last round. In the second round, it is very likely that Shi Luo or an 8-crown magician from the Magician Guild will be sent out. The possibility of it being an earth-type magician is very high. We should be more confident if we send out a wood-type Sky Master. Lung Fengyun nodded and said, At this time, we can only gamble. Let Tian Xie go up. His strength is comparable to Wofu. Although his equipment is slightly inferior, we can't care too much now. Let's use all the trump cards we can. Shui Mingwei shouted in the direction of the magician from the Magician Guild. Where is Tian Xie? President. A figure flashed out and revealed a handsome face. This person looked to be around 50 years old. His eyebrows were like swords, his nose was straight, and his mouth was square. He was extremely handsome. He was tall and had broad shoulders. He gave people a feeling of justice and awe-inspiring. Shui Mingwei took off a ring from her hand, and with a flick of her finger, it landed on Tian Xie's hand. She said, Take a look at what's inside. You will go up in the second round. You must remember, this is our guild's last chance. In the guild, you are the #1 wood-type magician. If you win this battle, you will be the 2nd vice president of the guild. You are a wood-type genius and also a top student who graduated from the Yinyang Hall of the Heavenly STEM Academy. You are only 60 years old, and you have broken through to the 8-crown realm. I believe that you will not disappoint me. Tian Xie wore the ring on his hand. With just a glance, his face was already filled with shock. He said, Don't worry, President. Tian Xie will definitely try his best to win this battle and kill the opponent. Shui Mingwei nodded and said, Go. Even if you have to use the things in the ring to smash, you have to win this battle for me. Tian Xie walked out from the side of the Magician Guild. With a step, he soared into the air. With a loud shout, a thick green light exploded. The unique aura of the wood type exploded in the air. A demon beast that Ji Dong was extremely familiar with appeared under Tian Xie. It was the Emerald Ground Lizard Dragon King, the same as the mount of the Extermination Army General Chun Long Ao. Seeing that the opponent was actually a wood-type magician, Ji Dong couldn't help but laugh. The Magician Guild was probably going to be erased from the continent. Dual Ultimate Fire against the first wood-type. Ji Dong had already decided that he would not use the mana stored in his life-sustaining formation to obtain this victory. He wanted to prove to his master and master's wife that he did not waste these 4 years. Facing the high and mighty Tian Xie, who was riding on the Emerald Ground Lizard Dragon King, Ji Dong also walked out from the side of the Magician Guild. Seeing his appearance, the people of the Magician Guild were all stunned. Who would have thought that the Magician Guild would actually send out a youth that looked like he was only in his 20s to participate in such an important battle? Seeing the youth of the opponent, Shui Mingwei and Lung Fengyun looked at each other. There was no joy in their expressions, only confusion. Why would Yin Zhaoyang and Ji Zhangxin send out such a young magician? Could it be that they were humiliating them? And from their conversation just now, this youth should also be Yin Zhaoyang's grand disciple, or even Ji Zhangxin's great-great-grandson. But no matter what, he only looked like he was in his 20s, so what if he was strong? Seeing Ji Dong walk out from the other side, Tian Xie couldn't help but be stunned. In his eyes, this youth didn't even have a demon beast mount, let alone a battle. Little brother, you must have gone the wrong way. Magician, please come out for the second battle. Tian Xie said in a deep voice. It was impossible to say that he wasn't nervous. He definitely couldn't lose this battle. Otherwise, the Magician Guild would be finished. But thinking of the things in the ring, his heart calmed down a little. With those things as a guarantee, he wouldn't lose this battle. I will be your opponent for the second battle. Ji Dong said indifferently. You, Tian Xie was stunned. He looked at Ji Dong with a strange expression, but the nervousness in his heart couldn't help but relax a little. Could it be that the Magician Guild was going to give up this battle? His luck was really too good. Fearing that Ji Dong would regret, Tian Xie immediately said, Okay, I am Tian Xie, representing the Magician Guild, please. Ji Dong nodded at him and said, Ji Dong, representing the Magician Guild, please. As he said that, he also made an inviting gesture. The next moment, the two of them released their yin-yang crowns at almost the same time. The difference was that Tian Xie released it on the back of his mount, the Emerald Lizard Dragon King, while Ji Dong released it on the ground. Tian Xie's magic power wasn't as high as Wofu's. 8 crowns, 2 stars, level 84 magic power, first wood element. With the release of the first wood sun crown, pieces of green leaf-shaped light circled around Tian Xie's body. Unlike Wofu, heavy armor covered the body of this 8-crown magician. Perhaps because all wood element magicians like to use long spears, Tian Xie's weapon was also a huge dragon spear. Its length was similar to Chun Longao's, around 7 meters. Seeing him release his magic power, put on his armor, and take out his weapon, Ji Dong could not help but compare the strength of this opponent in front of him with that of Chun Longao. In terms of magic power, the two were almost the same. Their mounts were the same, and their magic weapons and equipment felt about the same. However, Ji Dong always felt that the opponent in front of him was lacking something compared to Chun Longao. Very soon, he thought it through. Compared to Chun Longao, Tian Xie lacked the aura. He lacked the perfect combination of Chun Longao's murderous aura and his own magic power that he had gained through constant training on the battlefield. Ji Dong could be sure that even if Tian Xie's magic skills were better than Chun Longao's, if the two of them fought, the final winner would definitely be Chun Longao. Ji Dong was looking at Tian Xie. Tian Xie and everyone from the two guilds were also looking at Ji Dong. Hilo, the vice president of the Magician Guild, only had one feeling in his heart, and that was rejoicing. Why did he take so much care and even flatter Ji Dong back then? The main reason was because of Ji Dong's identity and not his strength. Ji Dong's identity could be said to affect the whole situation. He had once participated in the incident of resisting the two Supremes from the Central Plain City. Hilo was very clear about how important Ji Dong was to Yin Zhaoyang and Yin Zhaorong. In addition, the Prince of Equality had once said that Ji Dong was his own grandson. Hilo did not have the ability to contact Yin Zhaoyang and Yin Zhaorong, but he could contact the Prince of Equality effortlessly. After telling the Prince of Equality about the matter, Hilo said that Ji Dong was going to represent the Magician Guild. The Prince of Equality, Ji Yunsheng, almost immediately told him that the Prince of Equality's family would intervene in this matter. At the same time, he also told Hilo that Celestial Dipper Ji Changxin would personally go. Of course, all of this was on the premise that Ji Dong would definitely participate in this challenge. If Ji Dong did not come, then everything would have nothing to do with the Prince of Equality. Hilo was only a vice president of a guild. In terms of intelligence, how could he compare to the Prince of Equality? He immediately believed it, which was why he was so anxious about Ji Dong's arrival. Not to mention anything else, with a powerhouse like Celestial Dipper Ji Changxin joining this matter, With the power of the Prince of Equality and the strength of His Majesty Celestial Dipper, it would be very difficult for the Magician Guild to please them. Moreover, Hilo had always been aware of the relationship between Ji Changxin and Shangwan Yinkong. In fact, even if Ji Dong did not participate in this matter, the Prince of Equality's family would definitely not sit by and watch the two guilds merge. From the perspective of the 5 great empires of the 5 Elements continent, none of the empires would hope for the two guilds to merge. The reason was very simple. The two special guilds each possessed enormous power. It could be said that they were the holy temples of the magicians. They could already influence the decision-making of a country. Once the two guilds merged, then this power would be something that no country could ignore. They would even be on equal footing. Which country would be willing to see such a strong power rise? That was absolutely impossible unless... Chapter 242. No country would be willing to see the merger of two major guilds. However, if the King of Equality were to represent the Middle-earth Empire to help the Magician Guild complete the merger, then the relationship between the newly established Special Class Guild and the King of Equality would be different. No one would be willing to see the rise of a powerful force, but who wouldn't be willing to have a good relationship with such a force, or even be controlled by them? Therefore, no matter what, Ji Yunsheng would intervene in this matter, and would even persuade his grandfather to take charge of the overall situation. It was originally a difficult thing to convince Ji Zhangxin, but Ji Yunsheng only laid out a fact, and Ji Zhangxin immediately compromised. Ji Yunsheng's words to Ji Zhangxin were very simple. The Magic Guild was in such a huge crisis. As the president, would his grandmother sit by and do nothing? It was just such a simple sentence, and Ji Zhangxin came. However, Ji Yunsheng didn't expect his grandfather's feelings for his grandmother to reach such a level. As soon as they met, he almost committed suicide to prove his innocence. Why would Hilo rejoice at this time? He never thought that Ji Dong would fight today. Although he heard that Ji Dong used a super ultimate skill in the last battle of Holy and Evil, he didn't believe it all. It was said that Ji Dong didn't even have the strength of a quintuple champion at that time. Releasing a super ultimate skill at that level was just a joke. Even if he was in quintuple champion, he almost couldn't use such a powerful skill. Although he had some understanding of Ji Dong's strength, it was limited to the understanding of a young expert who surpassed his peers. Never in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that Ji Dong would actually participate in this competition. Moreover, it would be an important battle where he would win 2 out of 3 matches. Yesterday, he had just gifted Ji Dong a pair of substandard divine weapons. Without a doubt, it would greatly increase Ji Dong's strength. Afterwards, when the other majesties asked about the origins of this pair of heavy swords, he would definitely feel proud. Moreover, no one would blame him. The president, the great-great-grandson of His Majesty Celestial Dipper, and the disciple of the 2 sovereigns of fire. This youth had too many halos. Looking at Ji Dong, Tianxia couldn't help but frown slightly. He was a little embarrassed to attack this young man in front of him. What did this young man have? Why didn't he even have magic armor or weapons? Not to mention a mount. However, this thought only lasted for an extremely short period of time before his gaze was attracted by the strange yin-yang crown on Ji Dong's head. The black and white yin-yang crown could be said to be unique in the entire Demon Master world. Even the siblings Yin-yang, Chu-yang, and Fury, who were most familiar with Ji Dong, couldn't help but be stunned. The yin-yang crown above Ji Dong's head was already in a state where yin and yang intersected. No one could understand what this meant. Even yin-yang, Chaoyang only thought of a possibility. What was this yin-yang crown? Black and white? Tianxia narrowed his eyes and raised his dragon spear. At this moment, Ji Dong, who was about 50 meters away from him, let out a long roar. A transparent halo was suddenly released from his body. However, when this halo was released, an even more shocking scene appeared. The black and white light spiraled out from Ji Dong's body, and the intense dual fire element rose in a spiral. Ji Dong's entire body seemed to have become transparent, extremely transparent. The few supreme beings all had the same thought. What a pure, elemental body. Yes, the elemental body that Ji Dong released could only be described as pure. Transparent, pure black and white. They could even vaguely see the dancing white flame in his chest. A green leaf that was flickering with green light lit up in front of his chest, blocking the dancing white flame in his chest. The intense green light actually erupted with a life aura that was even more powerful than Tian Xie's. Regardless of friend or foe, everyone felt a sense of comfort when they sensed this powerful life aura. Without a doubt, that green leaf was the true essence of life that the Forest Demon Clan had comprehended for thousands of years, the core of life. A greedy light burst out from Tian Xie's eyes. As a first wood element demon master, no one knew better than him how important the leaf hanging on Ji Dong's neck was to a wood element demon master. If he could have it, it would be equivalent to having a divine artifact. Be it him or any other wood element demon master, no one could resist such a temptation. Behind the greed was killing intent. Although Ji Dong's yin-yang crown was very strange, the yin-yang crown only showed that he had level 61 mana. There was a gap of 23 levels. Such a huge gap could not be made up for by some strange mana. Moreover, the kid in front of him had not released a magical beast mount yet. From Tian Xie's point of view, Ji Dong did not have a magical beast mount at all. The reason was very simple. He had a very close relationship with several Supreme Masters. Although he had level 61 mana at such a young age, and his future was limitless, this inevitably caused him to be picky about magical beast mounts. Without a magical beast that could become a rank 10 mount in the future, how could he be willing? In Tian Xie's heart, he had never thought that Ji Dong would have any chance of defeating him, not to mention the strength of both sides. Thinking of this, Tian Xie already had a plan in his heart. He said loudly, "Wait a minute, I have something to say." Ji Dong frowned slightly and said, "Please speak." The greed in Tian Xie's eyes could not be concealed. After weighing the pros and cons in his heart, he said, "Little brother, how about we add some stakes to this match? In other words, the stakes." Stakes? Ji Dong couldn't help but laugh. He understood that the other party must have thought of him as a soft persimmon. There was no reason not to do this business that was delivered to his doorstep. He said, "Sure, senior. What do you want to bet?" Tian Xie said, "Let's bet on the necklace on your neck. This is obviously a magical equipment suitable for us with element demon masters. If you lose, this necklace will belong to me." Ji Dong said calmly, "Then what if I win?" Tian Xie sneered in his heart, "You can beat me?" He then pretended to be generous and said, "If you win, you can choose any equipment on my body. How about it?" Ji Dong laughed, as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. It was not a sincere laugh, but a mockery, a blatant mockery. Looking at his smile, Tian Xie was displeased and said, "What are you laughing at?" Ji Dong's lips curled up slightly. "You want to exchange your broken metal for my core of life? I don't know if there's something wrong with my brain or yours. I think that even an idiot wouldn't say something like that." Tian Xie said angrily, "Kid, how dare you call me an idiot?" At this moment, he realized that it wasn't just Ji Dong who was laughing. Everyone from the Magic Master Guild was laughing too. Thunder Emperor Fury mumbled to himself, "You really are looking for trouble. I want to see what you will use to exchange for my little brother's item." Ji Dong shrugged his shoulders and said, "You said it yourself, not me. If you want to bet, then please show some sincerity. Otherwise, please keep your mouth shut." Tian Xie hesitated for a while and said resolutely, "All right, then what do you think of this item?" He had already made up his mind to obtain Ji Dong's core of life. However, if he wanted to obtain the core of life, he definitely wouldn't be able to take it by force. Ji Dong had 4 supreme beings behind him, so even if he could defeat Ji Dong and snatch the core of life, he definitely wouldn't be able to leave the Azure Grassland. That was why he thought of this brilliant method, which was to make a bet with Ji Dong. Once he lost the core of life, those supreme beings wouldn't take it back. Young people were easily hot-blooded. As expected, Ji Dong was willing to bet with him. Tian Xie was already smiling in his heart. Gritting his teeth, Tian Xie transferred the dragon spear to his left hand. His right hand touched his waist, and something appeared in his palm. Seeing this, the expressions of the evil masters on both sides couldn't help but change. It was a small white jade tablet that was rectangular in shape and only half the size of an adult's palm. However, when this white jade tablet appeared in his palm, every evil master's eyes were a little dazed. Even the Supremes couldn't help but slightly change their expressions. Heaven Jade. Jidong's pupils contracted. Tian Xie said in a low voice, "That's right. This is the Heaven Jade. How about it? This Heaven Jade is qualified to exchange for your child of life, right?" Jidong nodded and said, "All right, I'll bet with you." On the Demon Skills Guild side, Shui Mingwei and Lung Fingyue's expressions turned ugly. Shui Mingwei said in a low voice, "No wonder Tian Xie's cultivation speed is so fast. He broke through to 8 crowns at the age of 60. So he actually has a Heaven Jade. With the help of this item, it might not be impossible for him to break through to 9 crowns in the future." Lung Fengyue glanced at him and said, "You people from the Demon Skills Guild are very secretive." Shui Mingwei frowned and said, "Let's settle the matter in front of us first." Tian Xie took out the Heaven Jade. It was obvious that he planned to stake it all on one throw. Of course, he knew that Shui Mingwei would be extremely dissatisfied with him if he took it out. One must know that the Demon Skills Guild wanted to swallow up the Demon Skills Guild, mainly for the Demon Skills Guild's treasury and the 365 Chaos Green bricks. The Heaven Jade in his hand was even more precious than the Chaos Green bricks. Tian Xie had already thought it through. As long as he won against Jidong and got the core of life, he would go far away. Anyway, after he defeated the opponent for the Demon Skills Guild, there was still a competition. Shui Mingwei and Lung Fengyue couldn't leave this place. This short period of time was enough for him to conceal his identity. It wouldn't be too late to come out after he broke through to 9 crowns. Tian Xie turned his wrist and kept the Heaven Jade. He said, "All right, since you agree, let's begin." As he spoke, he had already shouted. The dragon spear in his hand pointed forward. Strong Firstwood magic rose instantly. Green light covered his whole body, and he released his elemental body. Jidong's actions were interrupted by Tian Xie's words. At this moment, the core of life in front of his chest had already lit up again. Rich dual fire elements burst out unreservedly. A strong attribute suppression rushed towards Tian Xie. At the same time, a milky white halo flowed under his skin. A white light flashed behind his back. 2 huge wings had already split apart. It was the dragon snake transformation. Seeing a pair of wings suddenly appear on Jidong's back, the demon masters watching the battle were all shocked. They could clearly feel that Jidong's aura was increasing exponentially. Especially behind him, there was already a black and white yin-yang fish. There were 2 huge figures vaguely changing forms. Naturally, they couldn't see that Jidong had released his dual fire formation at this time. Extreme magic power, extreme dual fire? Shui Mingwei and Lung Fengyun said almost at the same time. The 2 looked at each other and saw the horror in each other's eyes. As the big shots in the Demon Master world, it was also the first time they saw a Demon Master with yin and yang attributes. What was even more terrifying was that this yin and yang attribute was actually an extreme dual attribute. The strong magic suppression, almost in an instant, blocked the Firstwood pressure released by Tian Xie. His momentum was reversed, and he had the upper hand. Tian Xie's magic power was 23 levels higher than Jidong's. In this case, although the attribute suppression would have a serious effect on him, the relative impact was much smaller. He was also shocked by the extreme dual fire that suddenly ignited on Jidong's body. But in the next moment, he immediately responded. To be able to stay in the Demon Skills Guild until today, to cultivate to level 84, and to have once entered the yin-yang school, this Firstwood Heavenly Venerable was definitely not someone easy to deal with. Feeling the change in magic power on Jidong's body, he immediately released his own demonic territory. Green light burst forth in an overwhelming manner. His own magic power and the Emerald Ground Lizard Dragon King safely merged into one, causing the demonic territory to cover thousands of square meters in the blink of an eye. It forced away the suppression of the extreme dual fire attribute from Jidong. The emerald ground lizard dragon king also had wings. When it spread its wings, it took Tian Xie's body straight into the sky and moved towards Hyoheim. Tian Xie held the 7-meter dragon spear with one hand. With a flick of his wrist, the dragon spear had already transformed into a sky full of spear shadows. Although his attacks did not condense magic power like the Annihilation War god Chunlong Ao, his attacks were more fluid. One spear after another, there was no gap at all. The dense green light formed an inescapable net in the sky. He seemed to treat Jidong as a bird, and wanted to use his own attacks to capture this bird. Jidong was the first to soar into the sky. Seeing that Tian Xie had caught up to him, he could not help but reveal a cold smile. He thought to himself, "I'm sorry. Today, I'll let you be my test subject." When the core of life in front of his chest touched Jidong's soul fire, 2 earth-shattering dragon roars rang out at the same time. Jidong's body was already extremely strong, but at this moment, the extreme dual fire attribute on him exploded several times in an instant. It surged out like a volcanic eruption. The powerful release of the fire attribute forced Tian Xie, who had released his demonic territory, to slow down in the air. Chapter 243. 2 enormous dragon heads seemed to have drilled out of Jidong's chest as they shot out of his chest. They were 12 meters long, had 2 heads, 9 claws, and were black and white in color. They were none other than the Heaven Evolution Flame Dragons, who had been quietly absorbing the life aura from the life core. With the appearance of the main body, the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon's roar became even louder. Hearing this roar, all the dragons that were below rank 9 all felt their bodies go soft. In the distance, the earth-shattering dragons of the Diamond Legion all lay on the ground, motionless. Tian Xie, who thought he had the upper hand, only felt that the emerald ground lizard dragon king under him shook a little, as if its wings were soft, and it refused to fly up again. Tian Xie tried his best to inject his first wood magic into the emerald ground lizard dragon king's body, barely stabilizing its mood. It must be known that his emerald ground lizard dragon king was a rank 9 magical beast, which was already the peak existence that this kind of magical beast could evolve. How was this possible? Not only did he have a mount, but it was such a powerful mount. What was this? Not to mention knowing it, they had never even heard of it. Seeing the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon, Tian Xie was not the only one who was shocked. The eyes of the 6 supreme experts present were attracted by the powerful existence that deterred tens of thousands of dragons. Of course, their eyesight was much better than Tian Xie's. Judging from the sound and power, they could all tell that this was also a dragon, but it was a strange dragon that they had never seen before. It had 2 heads and no wings, but it could still soar in the sky. It seemed to have dual attributes, the same as Jidong. Even the mounts of the supreme experts, except for the soaring serpent and Yin Xiaoyang's fire dragon king, all showed some uneasiness after seeing it. Yin Xiaoyang looked at the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon that Jidong was riding in surprise and said, "What kind of dragon is this?" It was actually so compatible with Jidong's attributes. Originally, I was still troubled about finding a mount for him in the future, but I didn't expect him to have already solved it himself, and in such a perfect manner. This giant dragon should only be at the 8th rank, but it was actually able to intimidate the other dragons. It had the demeanor of the leader of the dragons. Jidong, this fellow, was really capable of surprising people easily. "Old friend, do you know what kind of dragon this is? It should also be a member of your dragon clan." As they spoke, Yin Xiaoyang suddenly realized that there was something wrong with the flame dragon king beneath him. She raised her head and stared at the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon. Her body was actually trembling slightly. Yin Xiaoyang had been with his mount companion for more than 60 years, so he knew her very well. She was definitely not afraid. She was excited. He had never seen her so emotional in so many years. That's my bloodline. The morning sun, that's my bloodline. She has mutated. That is my bloodline, my bloodline. As it spoke, The Fire Dragon King was about to soar into the sky. Old friend, don't be anxious. What's going on? Yin Xiaoyang pressed one hand on the head of the Fire Dragon King. He couldn't let his old friend disturb the battle in front of him. The Fire Dragon King was so excited that it kept roaring. Its body was constantly trembling. Excitement, uneasiness, anger, surprise, and all kinds of other emotions were constantly erupting from the dragon. Her two thick hind claws had completely dug into the soil. If it wasn't for Yin Xiaoyang suppressing her with all his might, she definitely wouldn't have been able to restrain herself. Xiaoyang, don't stop me. That is my long-lost child. I can't be wrong. Even though her appearance has changed drastically and she has mutated, she still has my bloodline. I can't be wrong. I have been looking for my child for thousands of years. I beg you, let me go, let me verify it. Yin Xiaoyang comforted. Old friend, don't be anxious. As long as I'm here, no one can hurt your child. She seems to be Ji Dong's magical beast companion now. Can you wait until the battle is over? It will only take a while. When the battle is over, I will go with you to verify it. Calm down first. I really can't calm down. Xiaoyang, after my child was kidnapped by that despicable bastard Feng Shuang, I have been looking for her for 1,000 years. 1,000 years. Do you know how much I miss my child? How can I stay calm when you're asking me to? Bear with it. If I didn't guess wrongly, Fire Dragon King, your child should have been saved. Moreover, I can also guess who saved her. Haven't you realized that your daughter already possesses talent that surpasses yours? If I'm not wrong, she should have been born not long ago. What rank were you when you were born? What rank is she now? The one who spoke was the soaring serpent beneath Yin Xiaoyang. Looking at the sacred evolution fire dragon, this divine beast of fire that had lived since ancient times could not help but be filled with envy. After hearing the soaring serpent's words, the Fire Dragon King finally calmed down and said, Are you saying that Ji Dong saved my daughter? The soaring serpent shook its head and laughed. Fire Dragon King, has your little fellow's brain been fried? Although Ji Dong has extraordinary talent, he doesn't have the ability to save your child. Let alone him. Even Yin Xiaoyang would not be able to help your child reach such a realm. Can't you see that your child already has the origin of chaos? This is something that we 10th rank magical beasts have always been pursuing. Although there are 6 peak human demon masters here, which one of them can do this? If you want to be grateful, then go thank her. As it spoke, the soaring serpent gestured towards the flaming bar with its mouth. The Fire Dragon King's gaze was cast towards the flaming bar. Previously, she had not noticed the existence of the flaming bar. In other words, among everyone present, other than Ji Zhangxin, Ji Yunsheng, and Fury, the Thunder Emperor, only Yin Xiaoyang had slightly noticed the flaming bar. The flaming bar had concealed it too well. No one could feel the slightest ripple of magic from her body. It was precisely because of this that Yin Xiaoyang became suspicious. The flaming bar's gaze penetrated through the veil and just happened to meet the Fire Dragon King's gaze. When the Fire Dragon King felt the ripple of her gaze, her entire body could not help but tremble. A tremor from the depths of her soul caused her body to become unsteady. She swayed violently and almost knelt on the ground. Yin Xiaoyang's expression suddenly changed. He knew the Fire Dragon King's strength better than anyone else. Just who was this person who could cause his old friend to be in such a state with just a gaze? His gaze was cast towards a flaming bar for the second time, but it was not so friendly. Calm down, all of you calm down. I haven't lived long enough. I don't want to die yet. Don't ever provoke her. The soaring serpent hurriedly moved her body to block Yin Xiaoyang's gaze. She even said with some fear. Yin Xiaoyang asked in a low voice, Senior Soaring Serpent, who is she? The soaring serpent laughed bitterly and said, Don't ask me. I can't tell you. All I can tell you is that in terms of longevity, I am not as good as her. That simple sentence was enough to cause the 4 refined martial artists to be greatly shocked. They had never imagined that there would be such a super powerful being present. The soaring serpent continued, You don't have to worry. In the human world, she is just like an ordinary person. She can't use her abilities, so you don't have to be afraid. Of course, if she is truly angered, I dare say that even if everyone here, including me, were to join forces, we still wouldn't be able to withstand her rage. However, that would also bring her great danger. Therefore, she will not make a move unless it is absolutely necessary. You don't have to look at her anymore. Stay calm and pretend that she doesn't exist. Wait until this competition is over. She has an unusual relationship with Ji Dong. Don't tell me you still think that Ji Dong's talent is something he was born with, and that she is the most qualified teacher to teach him. Silence. Yin Zhaoyong was silent. Yin Zhaorong had a look of disbelief on his face. Ji Zhongxin and Shangwan Yinkong were at a loss. For a moment, the emotions of the four refined martial artists fluctuated to varying degrees. As for Flaming Bar, who was dressed in a long dress and wore a bamboo hat, her face covered by a veil, it was as if she had not felt anything. She still stood there quietly, looking up at the two parties fighting in the sky. While Yin Zhaoyong and the Fire Dragon King were conversing, the battle in the sky had undergone a drastic change. Facing Ji Dong's mount that had suddenly appeared, the first-wood celestial lord Tian Xie had only paused for a moment because he was controlling the emerald ground lizard dragon king, but his attack had already caught up. Regardless of whether Ji Dong had a mount or not, he could not lose this battle. He could not afford to lose, not because of the Magic Skills Guild, but because of himself. Because of that piece of heaven jade, his fighting spirit had reached an unprecedented peak. The 7-meter dragon spear weaved a large turquoise net in midair, enveloping both the sacred evolution fire dragon and Ji Dong within it. The ear-piercing sound of breaking through the air turned into a series of sharp whistles. The large net was by no means illusory. Every attack was not an illusion, but a real stab of condensed first with demonic power. Tian Xie's right arm could only be seen dancing in the air like a phantom. Standing at the point where the sacred evolution fire dragon's neck intersected, Ji Dong's spirit and demonic power were connected. Almost in an instant, Ji Dong had merged with the sacred evolution fire dragon, which was connected by blood and soul. Two huge rays of light suddenly burst out from his hands. The left was black and the right was red. Each ray of light was more than 9 meters long. The incomparably thick rays of light seemed to cut through the sky and appeared in Ji Dong's hands. The dazzling brilliance changed the color of the world. The red was fierce and the blue was flame. It was Ji Dong's fierce and flame dual swords. In a flash, the fierce turned from red to gold, and the flame from blue to black. Ji Dong only felt that the sacred evolution fire dragon, himself, and the dual swords in his hands had completely merged into one. Under the support of the huge demonic power from the sacred evolution fire dragon, he could no longer feel the terrifying weight of the fierce and flame dual swords. One black and one gold, two shocking rainbows crisscrossed in the air. At this moment, it felt like the sky had been split apart. The fierce and the flame were like extensions of Ji Dong's arms. He had never felt so powerful before. All the fire elements in the world were condensing in his direction. The fierce and flame dual swords weren't just extensions of demonic power, but also an increase in demonic power. These two sub-god-grade, super-heavy swords completely released the majesty of the fire attribute. The two huge rays of light that crisscrossed fiercely struck the huge net formed by the heavenly evil dragon spear. Fire could subdue metal and wood, not to mention the ultimate dual fire. The heavenly evil dragon's demonic power was greatly affected by the sacred evolution fire dragon suppression of the emerald ground lizard dragon king. On the other hand, Ji Dong's demonic power increased greatly under the enhancement of the dual fire array, the sacred evolution fire dragon, and the two sub-god grade weapons. The magicians from both sides who were watching the battle only saw two shocking rainbows suddenly appear in the sky. The huge green net that had the absolute upper hand before was forcibly cut open, and in the next moment, the raging dual fire magic power completely tore it apart. This was the first time Ji Dong rode a mount to fight against an enemy. It was also the first time he used a long weapon to fight against an enemy. Even he himself was stunned by everything in front of him. That was the all-out attack of an 8-crowned demon master. It was forcibly cut open by his two simple swords. The scorching and flaming dual swords were 9 meters long. At that moment, they each spat out a 3-meter-long sword light. Just by looking at the wide bodies of the swords, one could feel their terrifying destructive power. No one would be willing to use their own bodies to come into contact with them. Tianxia was also stunned. He had never thought that his attack would be so easily resolved by Jidong. Looking at the huge dual swords in Jidong's hands, then looking at the sacred evolution fire dragon that was staring coldly at him, a chill from the bottom of his heart spread throughout his body. Only then did he realize how wrong he was to underestimate this young man in front of him. He also understood that in the face of absolute power, all techniques were meaningless. There was a 23-level difference in mana, but the one completely suppressed was the level 84 Tianxia. Although he still had the dragon spear in his hand, his body was trembling slightly. His demon domain had been completely suppressed. When the dual swords crossed, there was only black and white left in the sky. Jidong could not release his demon domain, but the sacred evolution fire dragon could. With the mana of the sacred evolution fire dragon and Jidong's, the level difference between them no longer existed. Under the complete suppression of attributes, Tianxia could no longer use an attack like before. Cannon Dragon Bing nudged Fury, who had jumped off the purple Thunder Heaven Dragon's back, and said, "You or Jidong? Who is stronger?" Fury smiled bitterly and said, "I don't know." "You don't know?" Bing looked at Fury in shock. "Don't you have a divine weapon?" Fury smiled bitterly and said, "Senior brother, do you know what my junior brother is most powerful about? Creating miracles." Chapter 244. If we go all out, I might be stronger than him with the help of the Hell Thunder Divine Axe. However, the final result is unpredictable. After not seeing him for 4 years, the gap between us has gradually become negligible. Fury's evaluation of Jidong came from the bottom of his heart. He did not flatter him at all. When he saw Jidong's mount, the sacred evolution fire dragon, and the blazing and flaming dual swords, he knew that he would no longer be alone in the upcoming battle of the Saint Demon. He would no longer be the sole commander. "Take a strike for me." Jidong snapped out of shock. In the next moment, the pride in his heart overflowed. Ever since he became a devil master, this was the first time he felt the beauty of being in control of heaven and earth. Even though the sacred evolution fire dragon had yet to unleash its full power, and even though he was not familiar with the two huge swords in his hands, he could finally be considered as one of the strongest in the mainland. As long as his opponent was not a 9-crown supreme martial artist, Jidong was confident that he could fight him. The sacred evolution fire dragon swung its body in the air. In the next moment, Jidong was already above Tianxia's head. The scorching sword in his right hand carried an intense yang fire as it slashed down. Everywhere it passed, not only did the air distort, but a huge fan-shaped golden light mark also appeared. Faced with Jidong's attack, Tianxia felt a sense of helplessness. However, he still released his powerful combat ability at this critical juncture. The dragon spear in his hand did not meet Jidong's attack directly. Instead, the Emerald Lizard Dragon King beneath him suddenly shifted its body and tried to bring Tianxia away from the front. At the same time, Tianxia took the opportunity to pull his dragon spear out from the side towards the Scorching Sword. The Scorching Sword and Flaming Dual Swords were too heavy. Even though Jidong could temporarily use them with the demonic power from the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon, the 9-meter-long swords weighed more than 5,000 kilograms after being infused with demonic power. It was extremely difficult to change the direction of his slash. Boom! The 7-meter-long dragon's spear hit the side of the Scorching Sword. With a loud bang, Jidong's body tilted slightly along with his sword. Meanwhile, Tianxia and the Emerald Lizard Dragon King beneath him trembled violently. The dragon spear in Tianxia's hand was already covered in a layer of intense golden flames. Tianxia used all of his first with demonic power to barely withstand the attack of the ultimate Yang Fire. The blood in his body was already boiling. This was the first time that Jidong rode a mount in a battle. Whether it was combat experience or combat skills, Tianxia was above him. However, with that tyrannical heavy sword, it actually gave people a feeling that it was a force that could subdue everything. It forced Tianxia to be unable to fully display his various skills. Coupled with the strong suppression of the attributes, it made Tianxia feel extremely uncomfortable. The scorching sword was slapped askew, but Jidong was not idle. The flame sword in his left hand had already descended from the sky with a large patch of dark light. A cold halo appeared in the air, and the demonic power wave was the complete opposite of the scorching sword's explosive power. It was also a flame, but it was filled with a deep chill. The only similarity was that the gigantic heavy sword was equally violent. Tianxia's combat experience was extremely rich. At this time, under the strong suppression of the attributes, he gritted his teeth and forced himself to display his strength. He did not use the dragon spear in his hand to receive Jidong's second strike. As a top magic master of the Magic Skills Guild, he naturally knew the consequences of the yin-yang dual attribute magic. Although the dragon spear in his hand was extraordinary and helped him withstand the attack of the ultimate yang fire, the ultimate yang fire on the dragon spear had not been completely dispersed. Once it came into contact with the ultimate yin fire, Tianxia knew that he would not be able to withstand it no matter what. This was also the reason why he felt a chill in his heart. When Jidong increased his own demonic power to the extent that it could contend against him, he knew that he was in big trouble. The jade-ground lizard dragon king's huge body spun 180 degrees in the air. Its hammer-like tail swept out, and with a half-turn, not only did it dodge Jidong's attack head-on, the hammer-like tail was just like the dragon spear in Tianxia's hand, smashing towards the flame sword from the side. As a Class 9 magical beast, the jade-ground lizard dragon king's strength was also extremely great. If it were to hit the flame sword from the side, even if the flame sword was shockingly heavy, Jidong would have a hard time stabilizing his body. However, Tianxia was not the only one with a mouth. Two dragon roars sounded out at the same time. Mao Tai and Wu Yangye's auras surged. Their huge bodies spun in the air, and their speed was at least 3 times that of the jade-ground lizard dragon king. Furthermore, they did not spin 180 degrees, but 360 degrees. They brought Jidong with them as they spun on the same spot. The flame sword's violent spin coincidentally evaded the jade-ground lizard dragon king's tail, but the sacred evolution fire dragon king's tail whipped towards it. Smack! An explosive sound rang out in the air. The sacred evolution fire dragon king's tail had struck the jade-ground lizard dragon king's tail. A dazzling magical light erupted from the point where the two dragons' tails came into contact. Green light scattered in all directions, and the emerald lizard drake king let out a blood-curdling screech. Amidst a loud boom, its tail, which looked much thicker than the sacred evolution fire dragon, exploded. Scales, blood, and flesh scattered in the air. The reason why the sacred evolution fire dragon king was able to intimidate the other dragons was not just because of its aura. More importantly, it was because of its strength. It possessed unparalleled strength. In order to hatch it and make it compatible with Jidong's element, the flaming bar had spent close to 5 years. When the sacred evolution fire dragon king had hatched, it had eaten 81 flying serpent sloughs in the core world as food. Its body's toughness was definitely not below that of the twin swords in Jidong's hands. The origin of chaos and the burning of its soul fire gave it a powerful aura that surpassed all other magical beasts. The sacred evolution fire dragon king's tail contained the ultimate power of yin and yang fire. When the sacred evolution fire dragon king exploded, the ultimate power and the toughness of the sacred evolution fire dragon king's body made it impossible for the jade-ground lizard dragon king to resist. Under the intense pain, the jade-ground lizard dragon king's body inevitably became sluggish in the air. At this moment, Jidong's twin swords, Blaze and Flame, were already spinning around the sacred evolution fire dragon king. They carried an even sharper aura as they slashed towards Tianxia and the jade-ground lizard dragon king, one from the front and one from the back. Violence, absolute violence. Looking at the twin swords in his hands, every demon master watching the battle felt their blood boil. This was the most direct attack. The super heavy swords, which were 9 meters long and 3 meters wide, gave off an extremely domineering feeling. The man was strong. The dragon was strong. This simple attack forced Tian Xie, who clearly had a lot of battle techniques, to have no other choice. When the jade-ground lizard dragon king cried out in pain, Tian Xie had already gathered all his mana. Being in midair, his overall mobility depended on his mount. His mount was injured, and his speed was already at an absolute disadvantage. What else could he do? He could only take it head-on. Tian Xie was also fighting with all his might. An intense green light exploded from his body. With a loud bang, his full body armor exploded. As the intense light burst forth, it turned into countless spinning clear metal light blades in midair, scattering in all directions. The spear in his hand also turned into a clear ball of light as it danced rapidly, meeting Ji Dong's attack. Boom! Boom! 2 booms sounded almost at the same time. Tian Xie's dragon spear forcefully blocked Ji Dong's first strike. However, when the second strike slashed down, the ultimate dual fire mana instantly burst forth. In that unparalleled boom, the heavy sword in Tian Xie's hand exploded into pieces. Tian Xie groaned at the same time. His body was about to be engulfed by the ultimate dual fire. Even if he didn't die, he would be severely injured. At this moment, a ball of intense yellow light was released from Tian Xie's trembling right hand. It turned into a ball of intense yellow light, blocking the aftermath of the ultimate dual fire explosion from his and the jade-ground lizard dragon king's bodies. Magic skill scroll. Ji Zhangxin frowned. Tian Xie did not use his own power to block Ji Dong's attack. The 2 heavy waves in Ji Dong's hands were too overbearing. With the mana from Ji Dong and the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon, even an 8-crown Demon Master would not be able to block the ultimate dual fire combination skill head-on. Tian Xie was forced to face it head-on. The dragon spear was destroyed. He blocked the aftermath of the ultimate dual fire combination skill, not with his own power, but with the defense of the earth element. Without a doubt, this came from the power of the scroll. Tian Xie had already used an earth element scroll. At the same time, he used the collision of mana to retreat in the air with the jade-ground lizard dragon king. Ji Dong slashed down with both swords. He felt that the mana in his body had been drained by almost 20% when the ultimate dual fire combination skill exploded. It was clear how much mana was consumed behind the power of the dual fire combination skill. At this moment, the sky was filled with clear light. The scattered clear light from Tian Xie's exploded armor had already turned into rapidly spinning light blades that shot towards Ji Dong. Tian Xie was an 8-crown demon master after all. When he saw that he could not avoid a head-on clash with Ji Dong, he did the best he could. The explosion of the armor was completely intentional. This was also the special ability of the armor. When it exploded, it would turn into 36 destructive green blades to attack the opponent. It was not a direct attack. Instead, it would scatter and attack from all directions. This kind of attack was undoubtedly more terrifying. At the cost of sacrificing all the mana contained in the armor, the attack was extremely powerful. Tian Xie relied on the Earth Element Defense Scroll to retreat. His attack had also silently arrived behind Ji Dong at the same time he was knocked back. The violent boom from before had completely covered the sound of the 36 destructive green blades tearing through the air. It was impossible for Ji Dong not to notice the 36 destructive green blades. Demon Masters were born with a premonition for danger. They would react immediately when faced with danger. Using this time, Tian Xie had already put some distance between him and Ji Dong, forcing the ultimate dual fire to wreak havoc in his body. It could be said that while he was forcefully taking on Ji Dong's attack, he still did not make any mistakes in his tactics. In terms of control, he was not as good as Wofer, but in terms of brains, there were not many people in the Magic Skills Guild who could compare to him. Otherwise, he would not have been able to break through the 8-crown Demon Masters at the age of 60 and become a top expert. He was also the most favored demon master in the Magic Skills Guild to break through to the 9 crowned demon masters in the future. In the face of the 36 destructive green blades, Ji-dong had to deal with it. Even though his Phoenix Dance Dragon Snake transformation had a strong defense, it was an all-out attack launched at the cost of sacrificing a set of armor. In mid-air, he swung his heavy swords in a circle in the air at the same time, each drawing a huge arc. The scorching and flaming swords were used as shields. The huge curtain of light not only blocked him, but also protected the sacred evolution fire dragon. Although he could not use these 2 heavy swords flexibly, he still knew how to use the advantages of the heavy swords. At the same time, everyone saw a strange scene. A layer of golden red light emerged from Ji-dong's body and covered his whole body. His face was also covered by a hideous mask. It was the demon Lord Yin-yang armor. If it was summoned through a storage magic tool, the armor that was summoned would need time to be worn. However, Ji-dong's demon Lord Yin-yang armor simply appeared directly from under his skin. When it appeared, it was already on his body. This was the use of the fusion magic. 2 huge flames with a radius of 9 meters blossomed in the air. With his arms as the center, Ji-dong released the 2 great offensive and defensive skills from the 2 Sovereign King marks at the same time. His right hand was a Flaming Sun Spin, and his left hand was Devil Flame Spin. Although the spin was from his body to his arms, the dual swords were still too overbearing. The terrifying rotation was like a huge whirlpool of death. Wherever it passed, the green light kept shattering in the air and was refined by the ultimate dual flames. Ji-dong did not dare to let his 2 skills collide. The scorching and flaming swords seemed to exist for the sake of the combination skill. Once they came into contact, they would immediately produce the effect of the combination skill without his control. However, it was also because of this that the combination skill's effect would greatly consume his own mana. If it was not necessary, Ji-dong had to avoid the appearance of the combination skill. The 36 destructive green blades could not even get close to him before they were all destroyed. Tian Xie also used this short period of time to retreat 300 meters away from Ji-dong and the sacred evolution fire dragon. The suppression on his attributes was also weakened, and he had time to catch his breath. Chapter 245. The Monarch's Double Dance was unleashed. The scorching sun spin and demonic flame spin easily broke through the opponent's counterattack. Ji-dong held the blaze and flame swords by his side, and his aura instantly rose to its peak. On the other hand, Firstwood Celestial Lord Tian Xie had lost his armor. Not only did his defense decrease, but he also lost the support of his own mana. Without a doubt, in this state, it would be even more difficult for him to resist Ji-dong's next round of attacks. Admit defeat. You have no chance at all, Ji-dong said faintly. He did not intend to kill his opponent. The power of the blaze and flame swords had brought him too many surprises. Ji-dong believed that if he could fully display the power of these 2 swords one day, or if he could fill all the sockets of these 2 swords, then he would have the strength to challenge a sovereign. Even if his own mana had not reached the 9 crowns level, it would not be a problem. Tian Xie was slightly panting, and his forehead was already covered in sweat. Forcing the ultimate dual fire mana out of his body was definitely not a comfortable thing. Sometimes it was blazing and exploding, and sometimes it was cold and lingering. The 2 completely opposite types of flames were torturing him, causing the mana in his body to drop rapidly. Furthermore, as Ji-dong dispelled his attack, the attribute suppression appeared once again. Just like what Ji-dong had said, with his own strength, he had no chance at all. Originally, Tian Xie should not have been so weak. It was because the sacred evolution fire dragon suppression on the Emerald Ground Lizard Dragon King was too strong. Not only did it greatly weaken the support mana he received from the Emerald Ground Lizard Dragon King, he also had to use his own mana to help the Emerald Ground Lizard Dragon King stabilize its mind. Under such circumstances, it would be good if he could use 70% of his strength. In this way, how could he deal with Ji-dong's strange, super heavy dual swords? A faint light flickered. Ji-dong's face revealed a trace of cold light. The 2 swords pointed at his opponent, and the powerful pressure kept increasing. All the demon masters watching the battle below could feel that his next attack would definitely be thunderous. He would not give Tian Xie any chance. Who told you that I'd definitely lose? You're very strong. You're only level 61, but you can force me to the point where I can't even fight back. Whether it's your mount, equipment, or weapon, you're all above me. However, don't think that you've won. As he spoke, Tian Xie flipped his wrist, and a scroll appeared in his hand. The scroll unfurled in the wind, and dense mana fluctuations burst forth in the sky. The air, which was initially scorching hot due to the ultimate dual flames, suddenly cooled down a little. Black light instantly spread out in the air, and thick ice spears quickly took shape. In the next moment, a total of 99 gigantic ice spears, each 9 meters long, were already shooting toward Jidong. Another magic skill scroll? Seeing Tian Xie release the scroll, not only did Jidong not panic, but a faint smile appeared on his face instead. Previously, Lucar, the vice guild leader of Golden Eagle Guild, had relied on a scroll to escape from his hands. Previously, Tian Xie had also used a magic skill scroll to block the aftermath of the blaze and flame dual sword attack. Now, he took out a scroll to attack again. Was he the only one with a scroll? Jidong did something that everyone could not understand. He did not use the 2 swords in his hands to block the attack of the 99 ice spears. Instead, he put the blaze and flame dual swords back into the vermilion bird bracelet. With a flip of his wrists, an item appeared in each of his hands. It was a crystal bottle the size of a fist. The crystal bottle in his left hand contained a black liquid, while the crystal bottle in his right hand contained a sparkling golden liquid. With a flip of his wrists, the 2 crystal bottles broke through the air and collided violently in the air. There was a violent explosion in the air, and a huge fireball with a diameter of more than 5 meters instantly exploded. The terrifying explosive force caused the fireball to turn black and gold in an instant. The blazing flames were like a huge shield, blocking in front of Jidong and the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon. A thick ice spear exploded in the blazing flames. When a huge ball of flames finally exploded, the 99 ice spears had been swept away. What was that? Tian Xie saw with his own eyes what Jidong had thrown out with both hands. That was clearly not an attack launched by his own magic power. It was not Tian Xie's idea to use the scrolls to launch the attack, but it came from the leader of the Magic Skills Guild, Shui Mingwei. Before the battle started, Shui Mingwei gave Tian Xie a ring. It was a storage ring that contained the scrolls that the Magic Skills Guild had accumulated over the years. In order to win this battle, Shui Mingwei was willing to pay any price. That was why Tian Xie had asked Tian Xie to bring the scrolls with him. This was Tian Xie's greatest and final trump card. He had a large number of scrolls. This was also why Tian Xie was so confident when he made the bet with Jidong. At this stage of the battle, it was no longer a battle of pure strength. Tian Xie was equivalent to throwing gold coins at Hyoheim. He wanted to use this method to defeat Jidong. Using scrolls to win the battle was undoubtedly the easiest way. He only needed to continuously throw out scrolls and unleash the various skills stored in the scrolls. There was no need to pause at all, and no matter how strong Jidong was, every time he resisted a scroll, he would need to expend a certain amount of magic power. There was a limit to the magic power of any magician. Even a sovereign expert was no exception. Therefore, Tian Xie did not think that he would lose. This was the reason why. After all, the ring that Shui Mingwei gave him had more than 100 scrolls. In this era, the method of making scrolls had already been lost. The value of any magic skill scroll could be said to be an astronomical figure. Back then, Carr had used a scroll to save his life, but he still had the support of the Golden Eagle Merchant Association. At this moment, Tian Xie, who had 100 scrolls, was like the richest magician in the magician world. He planned to use the most expensive method to end this battle. Even if he was facing a sovereign expert, he believed that before he used up all the scrolls, the opponent would not be able to hurt him. Unfortunately, Tian Xie had never thought that he would meet a freak, a weirdo in the magician world. His ninth water-killing skill scroll, the 9-9 Chilling Ice Spear, was actually blocked by Ji Dong's dual fire combination skill. Could it be that he also used a scroll? Although Tian Xie was shocked, his hands did not stop moving. In order to make it easier to use, he directly took out 10 scrolls from his ring and placed them in front of him. One by one, he threw them in the direction of Ji Dong. In the air, there was water, wood, earth, gold, and even fire. All kinds of yin and yang scrolls kept bursting with dazzling lights in the air. Even the most beautiful fireworks couldn't compare to the magical elements blooming in this space-time. The blooming flames made everyone feel dazzled. Looking at Ji Dong's side, no matter how fast Tian Xie threw the scrolls, he did not move at all. He also flicked his wrists, and golden and black lights kept bursting in the air. His speed was not slower than Tian Xie's. He would only pause for a moment when Tian Xie used a fire-type attack scroll. He didn't need to deal with it at all. The complete suppression of the dual fire element could directly make the fire elements produced by the fire-type attack fuse into his body, and instead strengthen Ji Dong's magical power. Tian Xie quickly realized this. In the following attacks, he didn't dare to use the fire-type scroll anymore. He only kept throwing out the other 4 elemental scrolls. In the air, the 5 elemental elements scattered in all directions. It was equivalent to the 4 elemental scrolls fighting the dual fire ultimate. The more Tian Xie attacked, the paler his face became. Every time he used a scroll, there would be one less, but it did not have any effect at all. On the other hand, he did not know what the opponent was throwing out, but it was as if it was inexhaustible and could always completely block his scroll attacks. Shui Mingyue's expression was extremely ugly. Those were all money. Every scroll was worth tens of thousands of gold coins, or even hundreds of thousands, or even millions. If those hundreds of scrolls were all exchanged for gold coins, it would be enough to make anyone rich enough to rival a country. But right now, they could only turn into balls of light that exploded in the air and didn't achieve the desired effect. All along, if any magician could obtain a magic skill scroll, they would treasure it. Only when their lives were in danger would they take it out to save their lives. It was the first time in 1,000 years that Tian Xie squandered it like this. The strangest thing was that his scrolls seemed to be malfunctioning and were always blocked by his opponent. In contrast to Tian Xie, Ji Dong's expression was extremely happy, and his smile became wider and wider. His opponent threw out magic skill scrolls, but what did he throw out? Naturally, it was the magic skill wine that he had just created. He had used all the ingredients he had bought previously to make magic skill wine. Other than the accidents of failure, he had made hundreds of finished products. Even though there wasn't a single sure kill technique among the finished products, an ultimate dual fire attribute technique, even if it was a sure kill technique, was extremely powerful. Furthermore, when Ji Dong used it now, he threw out 2 magic skill wines with the same attack methods and opposite attributes at the same time, creating an yin and yang dual attribute combination technique. It was stronger than a normal sure kill technique. No matter what the attributes of the scrolls that his opponent used, and none of them were existences with ultimate demonic power, with a magic skill wine, he didn't find it difficult to block them at all. This was the first time that Ji Dong had tested his magic skill wine in an actual battle. Reality had already proven that his research was absolutely successful. The power of the magic skill wine perfectly displayed the effects of the scrolls. Compared to the expensive scrolls that his opponent had thrown out, the amount that Ji Dong had spent on all the ingredients was less than 10,000 gold coins. To him, this was nothing at all. He could casually sell a crystal child, and he could get back several times the amount of ingredients. Yin Xiaorong's eyes were also a little dull. Looking at the abnormal battle in the air, he couldn't help but ask Yin Xiaoyong, "Big brother, did you see how Ji Dong released those skills?" Yin Xiaoyong said that wasn't his own demonic power. It seemed to be an attack similar to the scrolls. However, he didn't use any scrolls, and it's even more impossible for him to have so many scrolls. The Magic Skills Guild can be said to have sunk their boats this time. I don't know how Ji Dong dealt with it, but I can be sure that this is definitely the most expensive battle in the history of the magic world. Let's not talk about their bet. Just the number of scrolls released by that magician from the Magic Skills Guild is definitely an astronomical figure. Shangguan Yinkong was already grinning from ear to ear. This was the first time she had seen Ji Dong. She had just reconciled with her husband, and this undoubtedly made her feel unprecedentedly happy. The depression that had plagued her for decades had been resolved in a single day, and she seemed to have become several years younger. However, when the second battle began, her heart unconsciously tightened again. No matter what, Ji Dong was her descendant. Just as Ji Zhongxin had said, the lack of descendants in the equivalent king's bloodline had a lot to do with her departure. In this generation, Ji Dong only had 2 great-great-grandchildren. Ji Zhongxin had already told her through telepathy that apart from Ji Dong had already been adopted into the royal family. It could be said that Ji Dong was the only one who could possibly inherit the equivalent king's throne. For decades, even though Shangguan Yinkong hated Ji Zhongxin, she had always regarded herself as the daughter-in-law of the equivalent king's family, not to mention that he was her great-great-grandson. So, when she saw that Ji Dong was facing an 8-crown magician, her heart unconsciously tightened. It was only when the sacred evolution fire dragon appeared that she understood why the siblings, Yin Xiaoyang and Yin Xiaorong, were so calm. Looking at the extreme dual fire magic released by Ji Dong, although she was curious why it wasn't earth magic, she was also shocked by the extremely special magic combination. How could she know that, in fact, even the siblings did not know what level Ji Dong's current cultivation had reached? Their confidence in Ji Dong came from his ultimate skill, the sun-moon yin-yang world. Even in this kind of situation, they were not worried at all. If it really didn't work, Ji Dong could still release the magic he had stored and activate that ultimate skill to attack. Not to mention a wood element magician like Tian Xie. That double ultimate skill was something that even a supreme expert like them would have to go all out to defend against. The Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon, the raging and flaming dual swords, and now that magical magic wine. As the president of the Magician Guild, Shangguan Yinkong naturally understood what this meant. This was the rise of a genius of a generation, a true expert of the future magician world, and this person was actually her great-great-grandson. At this moment, she had already unknowingly puffed out her chest, unafraid to face the Magician Guild. The only thing left in her heart was pride. She really wanted to shout loudly, "That's my descendant!" Ji Dong's magic wine was almost finished. On the other side, the speed at which Tian Xie threw out the scrolls was also rapidly decreasing. Looking at Ji Dong, who was like a tiger eyeing its prey, Tian Xie fiercely clenched his teeth and finally took out the most expensive scroll in his ring.